Now, this is case number 319 on the calendar, the matter of McLean versus Reed. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated. Folks, have a seat.
Mr. Reed, how many children do you have, sir?
6.
Who is your oldest child?
Stephanie.
That's this child here?
Yes.
And your youngest?
Brandon.
How old is Brandon?
Brandon is 8.
You and Mrs. McLean were married for how long?
2 years, I believe.
And how many children do you have together?
2.
Your daughter is planning her wedding. And according to what I read, Mrs. McLean, you and your former husband agreed to split the cost of the wedding. You did a budget. It was going to be $5,000. Mr. Reed, you agreed to pay for half.
Correct.
You did, in fact, pay $2,500.
Yes, ma'am.
But the wedding went over budget, and you want him to pay half of the overage of $800.
Yes.
And Mr. Reed says, you went over budget, girls. That's your problem. I agreed to pay for half the wedding, which was budgeted at $5,000, and that's what I'm going to pay.
I agree.
Why did you go over budget?
Well, the reason we had gone...
Don't listen. Did you have a nice wedding?
Yeah. She had a beautiful wedding.
Beautiful wedding, beautiful bride, beautiful husband, nice-looking parents. Don't act... What?
I said yes, thank you.
Do you let him speak at home? Is that the reason he feels compelled to speak here? Because he's not allowed to speak at home?
Don't speak, honey.
She's cute. Okay, now getting back to you. Why did you go over budget?
Well, the reason we had gone over budget was we had it at the reception at a place that cost a lot more money than we had anticipated.
Now, when you realized that this was going to cost more than you anticipated, because you could have found a site that would have cost within the budget, but that's not what you really wanted, right? You wanted a different place. What did you do when you realized you were going over budget?
Well, Stephanie and I did a lot of emails back and forth because she actually lives in Utah, and I was planning the wedding here. And so I had told her that it looked like we were probably going to go over the cost of the wedding. And so she was kind of my in-between person between her dad and I, and had emailed to him and his current wife that we were going to be probably going over the budget.
Do you have an email from him indicating that's fine, I will pay half of whatever the overage is?
I do.
Let me see it.
This was actually an email to Stephanie.
That's fine. Well, this is not from Mr. Reed. This is from Mr. Reed's wife.
Right.
Do you know that your wife sent an email, sir, that said, listen, that's to Steph, and said, your dad and I don't have a problem if you go over the $5,000, some, as long as your mom is willing to split the cost. Do you know that your wife said that?
At the time that email was written, no, I wasn't aware that she said that.
When did you become aware of this?
I became aware about 1 to 2 weeks before the wedding as we discussed the overage.
So your wife was speaking allegedly for you, which she can't do, but they acted upon this and then went over their budget. Do you understand?
Yes.
So it was really in good faith that your daughter went over the budget because she felt as if she was dealing with your wife, and your wife had the authority to say, okay, as long as mom splits the cost and as long as you're not going over too much. So when you found out, Mr. Reed, about this email, what did you do?
Well, by the time I had found out about the comment that my wife made, things had already become contentious because all along I had made it clear to Holly that I agreed to a certain amount. Not only that, in the beginning, Holly wanted to spend far less. I actually felt that we should spend more, and it was my suggestion to pay the $5,000. Then come back.
Is that true?
That's true.
That's a good guy.
So to then come back to me and then say that she wanted me to pay more money, and not only that, in the beginning when she wanted me to pay the overage, she wanted me to pay the entire overage, which she estimated would be $300 to $400. And like I say, it became contentious, and so I said, we're going to have to settle the matter after the wedding. I don't want it to affect the wedding.
You're absolutely right, Mr. Reed. So?
So?
Well, he did not agree to pay half of the overage.
I know he did not agree to pay half. But when I had sent them an email stating why we had gone over, and he even told me on the wedding day that he would help me pay the overage of the wedding.
Did you tell her that, Mr. Reed?
What I said is that I would look at the expenses and analyze them and get back to her.
And did you look at the expenses?
I did.
Anything there look untoward to you?
The invitations cost $280 more than we had originally was discussed with my wife, Suzanne. There was a DJ that I knew nothing about, and he cost $450.
Well, DJ is great at a wedding. Did everybody have a good time?
I think so.
Did you dance?
A little bit.
I didn't say if you danced well, Mr. Reed.
Yes.
I said, did you dance?
I did.
Other than the DJ for $450, was it originally anticipated that there was any music?
There was going to be pre-recorded music. Okay.
I have very little sympathy because if what we're talking about here is $800, I would have paid the $2 so we wouldn't end up here. So there wouldn't be any bad feeling. You probably already paid so much to raise your daughter to this point, right? Probably cost you a couple of bucks over the course of, how old are you?
19.
19 years? So I don't know whether I would make a big to-do. But let's hear. All right, the DJ, what else?
Let's see. There was a video that was done that was presented at the wedding. It was a nice video. It was $210.
A video of what?
They interviewed Stephanie and Tim about the way they met and things like that. And it was shown at the wedding. Yes, it was nicely done. But once again, I knew nothing about it. The bridesmaids' outfits, traditionally the bridesmaids pay for those.
That's absolutely right. Why didn't the bridesmaids pay for their own outfits?
Well, Stephanie and I discussed that we would just take care of that.
Well, I don't know. You can't do that and obligate him. Ms. McLean. First of all, it's not traditional.
Right.
And second of all, you can't be magnanimous with his money. What else?
The last one is traditionally a portion of the flowers are paid for by the groom or the groom's family. So the portion of those flowers, I have it listed at $248.
Can I say something about the flowers? I didn't feel we should ask Tim's family to pay for the flowers. They were actually having a reception in Arizona a week later, and they were paying for everything there for that reception. And they also paid for the luncheon, so I didn't feel it was right to ask them to also pay for the flowers.
Well, very nice. What do you want from him?
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
Did you call him and tell him about the DJ before you hired the DJ?
No.
Did you call him and tell him that you were going to pay for the bridesmaids' dresses?
No.
You cannot use your former husband as a cash register.
And later today,
You don't say, I think I overpaid for this house. Let me see how I can get the price down a little bit. We understand each other, Mr. Zarba?
Yes, ma'am.
Perfect.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Holly McLean says ex-husband Steve Reed owes for his share of their daughter's wedding. Steve says Holly went over budget.
He doesn't want to be used as a cash register.
Oh, I understand.
Which is, we'll make the arrangements and you'll pay your half. And we don't have to consult with you. We're going to tell you this is what we want to do, and if it goes over, it goes over. Well, that's unreasonable.
Well, there's more to it than that.
You may explain it to me. But did you call him and tell him about the DJ before you hired the DJ?
No.
Did you call him and tell him that you were going to pay for the bridesmaids' dresses before you agreed to pay for them?
No.
Did you call him and tell him you decided not to ask the bridegroom's family for the flowers?
Yes, we did tell them that.
When?
Before the wedding, when he had stated that they thought that the groom's family had to pay for part of the flowers.
And what did you say? You told him no.
I didn't agree with that.
Fine. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean he's not entitled to say, that's fine. You want to pay for that? Pay for it.
Okay, but there's more to it. Where we had the reception, we actually wanted to have it at my parents' house so we could cut the costs. Well, Steve didn't want to have it there.
I don't blame him.
It would have been, the cost would have been a lot less.
Miss McLean, what you just said to me has absolutely nothing to do with what I've told you, which is you cannot use your former husband as a cash register. He's a person with opinions, and as long as you want to spend money and you want him to reimburse you for the money, he has the right to an opinion. You may not agree with that opinion, and if you don't agree with it and you want to spend the money, you spend it. What he's complaining about is you didn't discuss it with him, and that was wrong. I just want you to understand that I don't think your father was wrong. I think your mother was well-intentioned, but I don't think your father was wrong. And I've been involved with lots of weddings, and I wouldn't think of saying to my ex-husband, you're going to pay for half, and I'm going to decide where it's going to be, what kind of music we have, what flowers we have, what the invitations look like, and I'll send you the bill for half. Right?
But we did...
Flattened out on the floor. And I wouldn't blame him. So, in case there's any bad feeling, I don't think your father was wrong. And Miss McLean, if you wanted to do these things and you chose not to get an agreement with him before, you pay for it yourself. Case is dismissed. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
He did agree to it in his email with his current wife, and I really felt like he should have paid half.
I actually did send $102 over the amount, and then I was just served papers. There was no discussion after that.
I especially wouldn't have happened. I would have rather not had an expensive wedding at all.
It's just water under the bridge. We'll move forward and we'll be fine.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Friedman versus Zarba. Step forward, please.
Al Friedman is suing the current owner of his previous home, Mike Zarba, for the balance of a loan and for disposing of his valuable war memorabilia.
Mr. Friedman, you had a piece of property, a home.
Yes.
And according to your complaint, at first you leased that home to Mr. Zarba. And then there was a discussion about him purchasing the home. He ultimately did purchase the home.
Yes.
He had some trouble with getting an appropriate mortgage because of some credit problems that he may have had. And you loaned him the closing costs, which
Correct.
were $20,000, with a promise that he would repay that money within 90 days.
60 days.
60 days.
Correct.
So first it is your claim that he owes you some of that money, $2,800?
No, it's $1,800.
$1,800.
Left on the loan.
The second part of your lawsuit is that there was an agreement between the two of you that you could keep some property at the house, which you claim Mr. Zarba discarded.
Correct.
Mr. Zarba acknowledges that he discarded the property. He said that he gave you enough time to get it out, and he's not paying you the $1,800 that he acknowledges he owes on the original loan because he was forced to, A, hire a dumpster to get rid of your stuff, and B, he stored it all that time. Is that right, Mr. Zarba?
Yes, ma'am.
When did you first rent this house, Mr. Zarba?
End of July 2004.
And when you rented the house, Mr. Friedman still had some property there in both the shed and in an attic?
Yes.
When did you purchase the house?
April 2005.
And when did Mr. Friedman loan you the $20,000?
The closing, but we had an agreement where I did some work for him, so it wasn't really a loan.
Listen to me. When did he loan you the $20,000, which you acknowledge in your answer?
It would be the beginning of April.
And how long were you supposed to have to repay this loan, Mr. Zarba?
In about 60 days.
Good. When does your receipt indicate that you hired this dumpster to get rid of his property?
August 5th.
When did you tell Mr. Friedman that you weren't going to pay him his $1,800 until he removed his property?
It was the end of July, right?
July
July
what?
20th.
And tell me about the conversation that you had with Mr. Friedman.
Well, he showed up unexpected again. He treated me like I was a mini storage.
Listen to me. What conversation did you have with him?
The conversation was, you need to take care of your stuff, get it out, and we'll settle up.
Well, he came to your property
Yes.
looking for money. He didn't come there looking to take his stuff. He came there looking for his $1,800.
Well, it was $2,800 then.
Oh,
I
okay.
gave him $1,000.
And when you gave him the $1,000, you said, when you get the rest of your stuff out of here, you'll get your other $1,800.
Yes.
Is that what you said to him?
Yes.
And what did he say to you?
He said he was going to get it out. That was the only agreement we had.
And he said he would get it out.
He said he'd get it out.
Now, 2 weeks later, you disposed of his property.
Yes. Gave him till August 1st, in a few days.
Well, so far you didn't give him any time, sir. You didn't say that to me.
No.
You said,
Okay.
when you get your stuff out, I'll give you your money. That's what you said
But
to
I've
me.
been
I
asking-
repeat, listen to me.
Okay.
I repeated it twice to you.
Okay.
Al Friedman says the man who bought his home disposed of his valuable war memorabilia. Mike Zarba claims it looked like junk.
What troubles me, Mr. Zarba, quite frankly, is your answer. The first line of your answer is the most telling part of your character. You say, I owe him nothing. We were overcharged for the home, considering its condition, and he's lucky we didn't charge him for storing the items. That you wrote. So what you're saying is that after you lived there for a while, and there were lots of things that you had to repair, and the house, you didn't like the condition of the house, you said, I want to renegotiate in my own way the sale price of this house because I overpaid him for the house to begin with. You didn't write there that we had an agreement that we would store the stuff until August 1st. He didn't pick up the stuff August 1st. I hired a dumpster. No. The first thing that you wrote, the most important thing that you wrote was, I didn't like the purchase price, and I'm going to take another $1,800 out of the purchase price because I deserve that. That's not the way life works, Mr. Zarber. Is this your first house?
No, ma'am.
Well, I don't know what you did in your other houses, sir, but that's not the way you close a house. You close a house, you negotiate a price, that's the price. Once you purchase it, you don't say, I think I overpaid for this house. Let me see how I can get the price down a little bit. We understand each other, Mr. Zarber?
Yes, ma'am.
Perfect! Mr. Friedman, I want you to tell me what stuff, and I want you to be very careful, because I am an ecumenical abuser. I don't like when somebody tries to put one over late in the game, because that's what he did.
Yes.
I don't like when you try to put one over on me.
Yes.
So I want you to tell me what valuable items you left in the house.
And I made a list, and I'll go
You
through
sure
the
you want me to
list.
look at that list?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm going to take a look at it.
The largest items on that list were two major important pieces to me were I had military boxes marked with military. I had a frame of, when I was in Vietnam, of a load crew in front of a plane that had my military ribbons on it. I'm a disabled veteran from Vietnam. There's also boxes I had marked with kids' items that had finger paintings in it from the time that they were kids, and just paraphernalia that they did through the years.
What you're really telling me is that the only thing that were there was your memorabilia. That is valuable, because two wooden Santa sleighs, handmade, 2 coolers, 2 sets of Malibu yard lights. I don't want to deal with that, sir.
Correct.
I had 10 years of postgraduate work. I don't deal with this. If it was important to you, you should have gotten it out. Now, you just disposed of everything, Mr. Zarba?
Yes, ma'am.
No, that was the wrong thing to do.
There was nothing in there that looked like it was anything somebody would save. I've got pictures here.
I'm going to take a look at your pictures. Right now. Can I see the pictures, please?
I mean, this is what he left me. It's not pretty.
Well, the shed's not pretty. First of all, get a new camera or take photography lessons. I don't know what this is. Grass. I don't know what this is. I have no idea, sir. This is a whole major blur. Are you doing
let
this on
him in
purpose?
several times.
Listen to me, sir. Are you doing this on purpose?
No, ma'am.
When you took a picture of the grass, I could see that this is grass.
Yeah.
This looks like a Hungarian goulash, sir.
It was in the attic.
Do you
The lighting
suffer
wasn't very good. I
It has
agree.
nothing
The
to do
pictures
with
don't
light.
look great.
Listen to me, Mr. Zarba. This has nothing to do with lighting.
Okay.
This looks like somebody who's had a bad hangover took these pictures. All right. He had no right to destroy your property, sir. He had no right to take it away. He owes you $1,800 because he's a deadbeat on a loan that he made, and he owes you $1,500 for what he threw out. I'm speaking.
Yes, ma'am.
Suing him for $4,300, I think that's excessive, sir, for the junk that you left there for over a year. But he has to be taught a lesson that he can't dispose of your stuff. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $3,300. That's it. Goodbye and good luck. Nothing.
Parties are excused. You may step out. Case number 269 on calendar in the matter of Feinstein versus Fairley. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Have a seat.
Mr. Feinstein, it is your complaint that you were assaulted and your car vandalized while you were at the defendant's bar.
Yes, Your Honor.
And the defendant, although I don't think you were there, is that right?
I wasn't there.
She says through her employees, I'm sure she has witnesses here, are going to tell me that you were very drunk.
Yes, ma'am.
And, well, I gather you acknowledge that you were very drunk, and any injuries that you sustained were sustained as a result of you flailing around and hurting yourself, and they don't know anything that happened to your car. So, what's the name of your bar, pub?
Scotland Yard Pub.
Which of your employees was there that evening?
Justin and Eric.
Stand up, please. And you don't know anything about this of your own personal knowledge?
No, I wasn't there.
You can have a seat. Justin?
Yes.
And Eric?
That's correct.
What is your given first name?
Lucky.
That's what your parents named you?
Yes, ma'am.
Interesting. Are you an only child?
No. There's 3 other siblings.
Are you the first, second, third, or the fourth?
I'm the 4th.
You're the last one.
Lucky to be here.
Got it. Okay. When did this incident happen at the pub?
The 22nd of what?
First, we got to get the date. The questions get harder, Lucky.
7/22, I believe it was.
Had you been to this pub before?
Only a couple times before this.
Immediately prior to the 22nd of July, when had you been to the pub?
Maybe a week before that.
So sometime the 15th, 16th.
Yeah.
Prior to that, when had you been to the club?
Maybe a month previous to that one.
Never had any trouble there?
Never, no.
You have a drinking problem?
No, not necessarily. Yeah, I like to drink, but I don't consider myself having a problem with it, no.
Well, according to you, Lucky, on the 22nd of July of 2005, you were drunk.
Yes, ma'am.
If I had to place a wager, I would say you have at least a minor problem with alcohol.
I would agree with that, yes.
Who do you live with?
I live with my parents.
They still think they're lucky?
I help them. I think that they do, yes, because I help them out.
So tell me what happened on the 22nd, Lucky.
Okay, in the afternoon, I was at my friend's restaurant, which is a couple doors down from theirs.
What were you doing there?
I was eating pizza. They have a pizza place. I've been going there for the past 25 years. And I decided to go next door, and I was advised to never ever go into that place because I would end up in trouble there, because there's always trouble over there. I went over there and ended up there a lot longer than I anticipated. I had way more drinks than I, wanted to have, but I was having a good time, so I kept on.
How were you having a good time?
Well, I was shooting pool, and I was talking to people, and I was buying several people drinks. Then, approximately 10 o'clock, 10:30 at night, I made the mistake.
What time did you arrive there?
Oh, maybe 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I had maybe 12 beers there or something like that. I was out of control, I admit that, but I didn't cause any problems. I wasn't obnoxious.
When you say you were out of control, Lucky,
well, drinking-wise.
Tell me what you mean.
Drinking-wise. I overdid it drinking-wise, and I knew that I was drunk, and I wasn't about to drive out of there, to leave, I was going to call a taxi, and I went into the bathroom. That was the mistake I made because the bouncer was in there. No words were exchanged. I looked at him, and the next thing I know, I was out unconscious. And then I found myself in the parking lot, left for dead. When I came to, first thing I saw was him again.
Which one?
This guy here in the black shirt.
That would be Eric.
I asked him for help, realizing that my wallet was missing, and if I could go back in the bathroom to see if my wallet was in there. He said, "No, you're drunk. Get out of here." And then he said the police are coming too. So I said, well, okay, well, I would like to wait for the police and talk to them. The police came, and they just told me that I need to go home too. Call a taxi, do whatever, go home.
You have a police report?
Yes, I do. Yes,
I'd
ma'am.
like to see it. Go ahead.
I went over to my truck, my tailgate, and sat there. A couple women came over and were sitting next to me, assuring me everything's going to be okay. A couple minutes go by, and the police come back again, which I was not causing any more problems, that's for sure.
Well, somebody called them.
They were called again.
But they weren't called by you.
No, ma'am.
So they were called by somebody about your behavior.
But I wasn't doing anything.
That's not my question. I said they were called by somebody about your behavior.
They were called a second time.
Oh, okay. Well, this isn't the police report about their call. This is a police report that you made that said that somebody punched you in the mouth and took your property. There has to be a police report of when they responded to their calls. You did call the police, didn't you?
I called the first time.
Who called the second time?
One of the customers that was out in the parking lot.
You have a copy of that police report?
No, I do not.
Okay. So go ahead.
Okay, so then the police came for the second time, and they said, we're going to take you home. We're going to give you a taxi ride home. And they put me in handcuffs, which is very embarrassing to me to be put in handcuffs like I'm being arrested. At that point, I realized that I needed to go to the hospital. My face was puffing up, my back of my head, I was dizzy. So they said, would you like an ambulance? I said, yes, I would very much like an ambulance. I went to the hospital, they sewed my lip up, and then I walked back towards my vehicle, which is several miles away from there. And it was about 2:30 in the morning at that time. I realized that my truck was vandalized. My windshield was busted. My car was keyed around the sides of my car. My tailpipes were kicked down to the ground. And at that point, I realized that I better not say anything to them. And so there was a taxi out in the parking lot, and I was taken home. The very next morning, I went back there, and I talked to the owner, Patrick Sirely, and asked him if he would mind paying my hospital bill because I was beaten up in his establishment.
But you don't know who beat you up.
I'm not clear on that, but all I know is I saw him, and then I was out cold. And then I found myself in the parking lot coming to, and then I saw him again, at my feet, basically. Or I was at his feet.
So who's going to start?
I'll start.
Okay, take your hands out of your pockets and start.
When I got to work that night at 7, he came up to order another beer about a half hour into my shift, and I noticed that he was intoxicated, so I refused to serve him, and he went haywire and slammed his fist down on the bar.
Put your hand down, sir.
Called me a name that I don't think I can say. He started ripping up $100 bills in front of everyone from his wallet. Nobody laid a finger on him inside the bar. I didn't want to get into a physical altercation with him, so I waited till our doorman got on at 9. Finally, when he was put outside of the bar, he kept charging Eric, trying to bust his way back in. I went out to see what was going on. He threatened to get a gun from his truck and kill me and Eric and everybody else in the parking lot. Began kicking his own truck, pounding his head into his own truck, and punching into his own truck and other people's cars in the parking lot. At one point, he knelt down in front of Eric, took off his shirt, and said, just kill me right now, just kill me right now. And that's what it seemed like it was going to get to a point where I needed to call the police, because people were very angry that he was...
Is that when you called the police the first time?
Yes.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
If you drank too much, it's your fault. Nobody got you down there with a funnel and filled your stomach full of beer. You managed to do that all by yourself.
And later today...
You think you have an obligation to support your daughter?
He never asked for support, or I would have given it to him.
Why does he have to ask?
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Lucky Feinstein says during a night of drinking, he was assaulted by bar doorman Eric Galan. Eric and his co-worker Justin Murphy claim Lucky was out of control drunk.
Okay, Eric, you got on about 9 o'clock?
Yeah, about 9 o'clock, and it wasn't too long until Justin called me over. And I tell Lucky that he was done for the evening, he needed to go someplace else. He asked why. He said, I told him that, you were giving a problem to our bartender. Come back some other night, I'll buy you a beer, and, that'll be the end of it. He got upset and irate, said that he had a gun in his truck, and he was going to start shooting the place up. One of the customers that was sitting outside got upset by that. They started having a yelling match. I got involved. I separated the two. And he continued to threaten people that were around. He said, I was going to come back and get you, shoot you, shoot you. And that's when he tried to bully his way through me. And as soon as he touched me, I just put him to the ground, held him down.
When you say you put him to the ground, how did you put him to the ground, Eric?
Tripped his leg and put him on his back, one hand on his chest, one hand holding his arm. I said he needed to calm down. As soon as I let go of his arm, he swung on me. And I just knocked it out of the way and held him down again. And Justin was outside and said, do I need to call the cops? I said, yes, please call the police officers. I got off of Lucky, went inside to make sure the cops were coming. Came back outside after a minute or two, and Lucky was already laid up against the wall at the pizzeria. Now, I didn't talk to Lucky at all in the bathroom. I don't know where that came from. So after he was laid out, he woke up a couple minutes later, and he asked me who knocked him out. I had no idea who did it. And then he started accusing me that I stole his wallet.
Did you find his wallet in the pub? Did you find your wallet subsequently?
No, Your Honor, I didn't.
The police officers came. They spoke with him. They spoke with me. They said they needed to take another call, but he was going to leave the area. He was walking down the alley. As soon as the cops were out of sight, he came back and continued to talk to some other person who wasn't even there that night.
Where were you when you observed this?
Standing at the door.
You remember any of that, sir?
No, ma'am. I never left that parking lot. I was waiting for the police to come because I wanted to.
The police came already, sir. They came and they left.
Right, and then they came back a second time.
Right. My question is, why did they have to come back a second time? Why didn't you just leave?
Because I was very drunk. I wasn't about to go anywhere, and I was sitting on my tailgate wondering, what am I going to do now?
Listen to me very carefully, sir. When you're very drunk, it's very, very difficult for a court to make a judgment as to the veracity, the truthfulness of what you testify to, and to give any credence to what you testify to. You are asking me to believe you above two people who were working that evening, sober that evening, have a clear recollection, at least according to them, of what transpired that evening, as opposed to believing you who was so drunk they didn't know on which pole they were at.
Ma'am, I'm saying that they're lying about this whole thing, that he's saying that he didn't give me any more drinks after 7 o'clock at night. I was in there drinking heavily. I was having beer after beer. They gave me way, way too many beers, in my opinion. I don't think that that's right.
How old are you?
I'm 41.
So is this what your complaint is, sir, that the bar overserved you?
Yes, ma'am, one thing. But I don't think that should happen.
Eric, we started this case by my saying to you, do you have a drinking problem? And you said to me, I don't think so. Maybe a little. That's like being a little bit pregnant. You never have a little bit of a drinking problem, Lucky. Now, if you were 18 years old, I would say, I'm going to nail them, because a bar should know that a kid comes in and you don't serve a kid more alcohol than they can consume. When you're 41 years old, you're supposed to know how much alcohol you can consume and still have your wits about you. And according to you, you were warned. Don't go in there. There's always trouble in that bar. But when you were at this place twice before, according to you, you had no trouble. So they clearly didn't have it in for you for any reason.
I believe that they do have it in for me.
Explain that to me.
Because mainly there's just Mexicans in there, and they always call me white boy.
Lucky. Did they call you white boy on the 15th of July?
No.
Did they call you white boy the month before that when you went in there?
No.
You didn't change composition from July 15th to July 22nd, did you? You were drunk. Stop blaming the rest of the world. You were drunk. Either you fell, you got beaten up, you don't know who did it, your car got trashed, you don't know who did that. You have to accept responsibility for your own behavior. If you drank too much, it's your fault. Nobody got you down there with a funnel and filled your stomach full of beer. Nobody. You managed to do that all by yourself. If you had gotten into your car and killed somebody on the way home, I would take every piece of property that this lady had.
Which someday will happen.
Just a second. I would take every piece of property that this lady had, because under those circumstances, both of you would be responsible. I'd take every bit of property you had, and I'd take every bit of property she had, because somebody who was innocent got killed. The only one that got hurt that night was you. And you caused that yourself. So deal with it. Your case is dismissed. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
They're lying. No, I don't have a gun.
He threatened me. He pounded his fist on the bar.
No, that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous.
Started harassing the female customers.
I don't know if it was the bartender, but a lot of people, they beat me up.
Threatening people who were trying to help.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Suda, Frazier versus Hebb. Step forward, please.
18-year-old student Nikki Frazier and guardian Sam Suter are suing Nikki's mother, Stacy Hebb, for child support costs. Nikki says her mom won't turn over child support she receives from her father.
Mr. Suter, your complaint is that you and your family were nothing but kind to the defendant. She was having some difficulty, and she was unemployed several years ago. Her daughter and your daughter were friends since grade school, and you volunteered to give her a home.
Yes, ma'am.
When she was 16. How did you do in their home, the Suter home? Did you do okay?
Yes.
Did you graduate yet?
Oh, I graduate in a couple weeks.
What are you doing after graduation?
I want to go to college.
How did you do in high school?
I make good grades.
She's been AB honor roll all through high school.
Did you apply to college?
No, I did not.
Why not?
Because the application fees are like $50 for each application, and my mom told me she'd help me pay for them, but she never helped me pay for it.
So, Mr. Suter, this is your lawsuit. Ms. Fraser lived with you for 2 years, and you got no support for her from her mother. You did not even seek support.
No, ma'am.
But then you found out that Ms. Hebb was getting support for Nikki from Nikki's father, and you feel as if that's unfair.
Somewhat, yes.
This is not rocket science, Ms. Hebb. How long have you been divorced from Nikki's father?
Since she was about 6 or 7.
Do you have other children?
Yes, ma'am.
Are the other children also the product of this marriage?
No, ma'am.
And how much do you receive from Nikki's father for her support?
$50 a week.
What did you do with the money since 2003?
When she has called and said that she didn't have any food in the house and she needed me to take her to eat, I would feed her. If she's needed personal hygiene items, I've taken her. I've paid her cell phone bills. And yes, I did tell her that I would pay for her application fees. She never came to me and said, I've applied here and I need
I'm
the
not
money.
worried about college fees right now and application fees. How do you support yourself?
I'm a live-in nanny.
You think you have an obligation to support your daughter?
Yes, ma'am.
So that the things you bought for her, the few toiletries you bought for her, or paying a cell phone bill, you did that for your daughter because you're her mother. That's what you do.
Yes, ma'am.
The $50 a week that you were getting from her father should have gone to the Suter family.
He never asked for support, or I would have given it to him.
Why does he have to ask? Did you ever say to him, Ms. Hebb, Mr. Suter, I get money for Nikki's support from her father. It's not right that I keep it. I'm going to turn it over to you when I get it.
No, ma'am, I didn't. I instead, like I said, whenever she would call and said that she needed things, I would take care of her.
Well, that's what you did for her because you're her mother. She has 2 parents, a mother and a father. You're the mother. You work. If you have to take care of a few items, if you happen to take care of a few items for your daughter, that's very nice of you. The other $50 a week, if her father knew that she wasn't living in your home, did your father know you weren't living
He just found out recently because I didn't have his number to get a hold of him.
If her father knew, I guarantee you, her father wouldn't have said, well, I'm going to send her money.
Her father has known. She's gone and seen him since she's lived with Mr. Suter.
I'm just curious. Not that I'm taking this for the truth of what you're going to tell me, but just my own curiosity. Did he ever say to you, if he knew that she wasn't living with you, I'd like to send the money to Mr. Suter?
No, ma'am.
Never did?
No, ma'am.
He must have had a lobotomy. Ms. Hebb, this is not a difficult case. It doesn't even test my academic prowess. The last 2 years, your daughter has been living with the Suter family, and you've collected $50 a week, roughly $2,500 a year. The Suters are suing you for $5,000 because that's approximately what you've collected over the time that your daughter has been living with the Suters from her father, and that money should have been turned over to the Suter family immediately. Judgment for the plaintiff for the amount of $5,000. That's all. Make those college applications.
Parties are excused. You may step. Yeah, it's case number 264 on the calendar in the matter of Creatia versus Cruz.
Thank you.
How you doing, Judge?
Good.
Parties have been sworn in, Your Honor. You may be seated. People have a seat.
Ms. Creatia, the defendant is your current boyfriend, I assume this gentleman over here, your current boyfriend's ex-girlfriend. And they had a relationship, must have been for a while, because they have 2 children together. It is your complaint that Ms. Cruz was in a snit about something, and when your boyfriend went over to her house to pick up or drop off the children, he was using your car, and she took out her frustrations on him by kicking your car and causing damage. Ms. Cruz says she would never do such a thing, right?
Right.
When did this happen?
April 22nd.
You weren't there?
No.
But the boyfriend was there?
Yes.
And his name is?
Ben Mojica.
Mr. Mojica, would you stand up, please? Next to her. How many children do you have?
2.
How old are they?
7 and 6.
5.
How long did you and Miss Cruz live together?
It's about 10 or 11 years.
Never married?
No, ma'am.
How come?
Just didn't get married.
Couldn't afford to.
Shh. Did you ever ask her?
No.
Excuse.
What?
He was going to buy me a ring, but I told him not to bother, so.
Did you tell him not to bother after your first child or your second child?
After my second one, when I knew that things were going pretty much downhill.
You couldn't have a clue to that before you had children with him?
No, he was actually a pretty good guy at that time. He just seemed to have went down the tubes, going to jail, getting into things that I don't want around my children.
Who is this man?
My uncle.
Uncle. Just seems a little odd to me that life has changed so much over the last 20, 30 years. That people live together 10 or 11 years. They don't want to make a commitment to get married, but they don't feel as if having children is a commitment. Just something doesn't balance out to me, so I'm always interested in this as it's just a social experiment. Do you understand that, Ben?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so on the 22nd of April, what were you doing over at her house?
They were having a toy party.
What is that?
An adult party, like toys, dolls and things like that.
No, it's like lotions and stuff.
What?
Lotions. It's for adult. It's for
an adult toy party. I shouldn't have gone any further. I thought it was a toy party for children. My mistake. Okay, so you were having an adult party.
Right. It's
okay,
not just
go ahead.
Well, I was with the kids, with Marcus and Tiaja. We were at Lori's house.
Who's Lori?
A friend of hers and mine. And Marcus and Tiaja were there with me. I had picked them up.
Your 2 children?
Yes, at the daycare earlier in the day. And I had called Tanya. Then she had informed me about they were having a little party, and her sister, Michelle, was down here from Hartford. And Michelle also has 2 children. And she just had one, so he wouldn't know anything really what was going on in the party. And Xavier would know. So she asked me, Ben, can you come and pick up Xavier?
Who asked you?
Michelle did.
That's her sister. So
yes,
her
ma'am.
Let's get to the story a little bit faster.
All right.
So far
her
you're doing
sister-
fine, but we got to get there because I have other things to do.
I'm sorry.
Okay, so her sister said, can you come and pick
Yes,
up
can you come and
Xavier,
pick up
who is how
Xavier?
old?
About 11, I believe.
How old is Xavier?
He's 10.
10 or 11. You always quibble over a year. So they wanted you to come pick him up because the party was inappropriate for him.
Yes, for him.
Okay, so you went to pick him up?
So I went to pick him up, and Marcus and Tiaja were with me at Lori's at the time. Marcus was hungry, and I had just ordered Chinese food. And I told Erin and I told Lori, hey, you know, I'm gonna leave him. He's hungry. He'll just have something to eat. Can you watch him? She said, sure. I took Tiaja with me, which is my daughter.
She wasn't hungry?
No.
She's always hungry.
Don't do it again. You want to know why? Miss Cruz, because if I see that you can't control yourself in the courtroom, how am I going to believe you when you tell me that you wouldn't dare do what she says you did to her car, because you don't have a temper like that. You can control yourself, right? So far, it's been twice that you haven't been able to control yourself, or 3 times. You get me? Yeah. Even your uncle gets me, right?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Go ahead.
So when I pulled up to pick up Xavier, Tanya was outside and Michelle was outside with her baby that she just had. So she came out to show me. I'm real close with them and stuff. And when she came outside, I said, oh, Michelle, there's your new baby. I'm getting out of the car. And she kept asking me, where is my son? Ben, where is Marcus? Where the F is Marcus? And I'm ignoring her because she gets loud and she's always doing that. And Tiaja, I look at Tiaja and I saw in her eyes, she was getting, you know, like, what's going on?
Right, because her mother was acting inappropriately.
Yeah, so I said, Tanya, you know, relax. Why do you guys? She goes, no, where the F is my son? Pa, pa, pa. So I kept ignoring her, and I'm talking to Michelle. She said, you want to ignore me? Well, I don't know if she chose those words or whatever. She went right around us and started kicking the car. And that's when I got off, obviously.
And?
There was people around, and I said, you guys saw that, right? You guys saw what she just did, right? Right? And everybody's like, you know, all of a sudden nobody saw anything except one kid. He saw it, and I have a police report.
I'd like to see the police report, please.
Wait. And he's
Can't control yourself?
He's a minor, Your Honor?
No,
Can't control yourself?
I'm just trying to,
You're trying to
put my hand.
What do you think? You think that I'm not going to let you speak? Do you think that this is only a one-sided case, that only he gets to speak? You do know that both sides get to speak, right, Miss Cruz? In their turn. What's Uncle's name?
Vincent.
You get it, Vincent?
Yes, ma'am.
You get her, Vincent?
Yes, ma'am.
Good. Because you're going to have to make a very important decision, Vincent, as to whether or not you want to speak later.
Okay.
Because you don't look like the kind of guy that wants to be humiliated.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
There was a witness in the police report who indicates that they saw you kick the car.
I forgot to tell you. He says, I'll pay somebody to say that she kicked the car.
And later today,
This has seriously been going on for a long time, threatening my child, threatening me. He shoved me into a wall and left me captive in the closet.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Erin Creatia says her boyfriend's ex, Tanya Cruz, vandalized her car by kicking it.
All right. Okay, Miss Cruz, now it's your turn. Let's go to April 22nd, 2005. How many people were at the party?
At that point, there was probably about 4.
Four
My
women?
sister, yes.
Where was Uncle Vincent?
He was not there.
So, Uncle Vincent saw nothing, is that right?
Right. But when I went outside, they were outside talking, I noticed that my son wasn't in the car. I asked him, you know, where's my son? He ignored me, where's my son? In which he had told my brother she looked so good that I couldn't look at her. That was in his words. After he ignored me, I said, Tiaja, get out of the car, go get my son, bring him back.
Why did you do that?
Because he had just came back from Florida. For 2 years, he hasn't seen his children. So why are you going to leave your kids behind? And my daughter not being hungry, she's hungry all the time, but that's irrelevant. So I told my daughter to come in with me. We went in. He has a very bad temper, so I know not to provoke him. We went inside the house. He started swearing and, you know, saying derogatory comments, in which I shut the door because I had company. I thought that was over with. I sat there, I got a knock on the door. The cops came. They know him very well. They ended up asking him to leave the premises, and 3 months later, I get court papers in the mail.
He made the police report that day, and there was a witness in the police report who indicates that they saw you kick the car.
That's, I forgot to tell you. He says, I'll pay somebody to say that she kicked the car.
Ridiculous.
Is there anything that Uncle Vincent is going to tell me? No, he's just here for moral support.
Right. Perfect. Pretty much the women that were at my house are single working moms. And,
well, they're single working moms, but you were having a party at your house, the subject matter of which was inappropriate for children.
Right.
And you had a 10-year-old child there.
No, my sister had called, and they got
She
along.
didn't call.
Yeah,
he called your house.
No, she had called him.
So she had called him to please come over and pick up her son?
Well, she had said, come see my nephew. You know, he's still a baby.
Sounds as if
She
your
was gonna
family
ask
doesn't
him.
dislike him as much as you do.
No, we actually, they get along with him.
Good. Can I see the estimate, please, on the car? And this was your car?
Yes.
Miss Cruz, I don't believe you. I believe you have a hot temper, and I believe you went out there and gave the car a good kick because he ignored you. And I believe that you walked outside the house and you said exactly what he said you said.
I interrupted a couple times because he takes a long time to tell
Listen
us.
to me. What I'm telling you is I believe him, and I don't believe you. I believe that you kicked the car because you were frustrated and annoyed that he wouldn't respond to you.
I was upset.
Oh, I know that. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $894. Thank you. Thank you.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Actually, he's got, you know, the dirty mouth, and he tells me, well, I'm going to talk to the kids the way I'm going to talk to them.
I knew that she'd see through Tanya's lies.
He had a drug habit, and, you know, he had to change his lifestyle.
Yes, I did have a drug habit, but I want to change my life. As you can see, being with her, that's the, you know, who wouldn't have a drug habit?
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Aiken versus Smith. Step forward.
20-year-old Robert Aiken is suing his ex-fiancée, 22-year-old Cheryl Smith, for unpaid bills and late fees. Cheryl claims Robert is obsessed with her.
Mr. Aiken, Miss Smith was your fiancée for a period of time. I assume you lived together for a period of time. And it is your claim that you put some money into her checking account in order to pay some bills.
Correct.
You broke up, and she put a stop payment on the bills you had paid. What was this, electronically done?
Yeah, she did it online. She stopped all payments.
I don't understand how you do that. I like that little checkbook. You write it out, you deposit it. I don't understand the online stuff, but you want that money back.
Correct.
Ms. Smith says nothing could be farther from the truth. You put money into the account. You did pay bills with the money you put into the account. You started to pay some more bills with money that you hadn't put into the account, so she put a stop payment on those bills. She has a counterclaim. She says that at some point immediately preceding your breaking up, she covered the entire rent because you were short, so that you owe her for rent. And in addition, and more importantly, she says that since the breakup, you've been involved in some serious harassment. So the money part should be relatively easy. How much money did you put into her account?
Total, two checks of $420 and $316.84, so $736.84.
When?
The $420 was put in on August 12th, and the $316.84 was put in August 11th.
When had you covered the rent, Ms. Smith?
I wrote the check on August 1st.
And how much was the rent?
$662.70.
Was it your responsibility to pay the rent?
We both paid the rent. It was joint money.
Immediately prior to the 11th of August, when did you make your preceding deposit in her bank account?
I would give her cash when I got my check because she was writing all the checks for bills. So I would just cash and stuff of that nature. I have no proof of it. Sorry. I'm a hand person.
Now, he put in the $736. What bills did he pay with it?
Well, my counterclaim is I have bills that total $548.44 that I paid for him, in addition to the rent for $662.70.
It wasn't like a split right down the middle. We were
Well,
just
it
paying.
should be. It's all sounding very good for Miss Smith, Mr. Aiken. What I want to know is, did she make payments for you in the amount of $548? To whom?
She made certain bills.
To whom?
There was a $200 payment to his father.
That was to your father.
That's correct.
What, do you owe him money?
A car payment. It's in his name.
Go ahead.
$63.94 for his Comcast bill.
Uh-huh.
I also have penalties in which I was charged in order to stop the 3 payments that he was unauthorized to make.
Just a second. I want to know what the payments were that you made, not the fees. The payments were that you made.
Then without the penalties, there were bills totaling $196 made prior.
Made prior to when?
Prior to August 1st for him.
Forget it. You paid $263 that you can account for, not $548. You know, you look like butter would melt in her mouth. You know, you keep turning it around. She becomes a more interesting character. 736 minus 263, $473. That's what's left over. Now, we're going to say that he owes you half for the rent, because that's part of your counterclaim. So we're going to take off $330 from that. $143 you owe him. You got it?
Now, what about the payments that she stopped, though?
Good, she stopped them. Good, she should stop them. $143. Gets expensive when you play house. Now I want to hear about the harassment, because that troubled me. You say that he called you over 100 times in a short period of time?
That is correct.
Let me see. Why do you keep calling her, Mr. Aiken?
There were different occasions equaling up to it. I was trying to call her in the beginning to try to get some of the money without going to court. And then from time to time, she would be like, okay, well, I'll pay you something. And she'd be like, well, let's meet up here. And say at 1 o'clock, it'd be like 1:30, 2 o'clock. So I'd call her. She'd be like, yeah, I'm going to be there, I'm going to be there. So it's just different phone calls basically trying to resolve this money issue.
Well, but I'm looking at it.
It's just continuous.
For instance, I'm looking on the 23rd of August, one right after another. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 18 calls, one right after another.
That would just, as far as that was
Were
just...
you leaving messages on her machine?
No, I didn't leave voicemails. I left, I think, maybe one voicemail. The rest where she'd pick up the phone and then she'd hang it up, and I'd try to get back to her and talk to her, trying to...
She doesn't want to talk to you.
I understand that.
Well, but when do you start getting that message, Mr. Aiken, that she doesn't want to talk to you? If, according to you, she picks up the phone and hangs up, she doesn't want to talk to you.
I was just trying to get money, like I said, with these bills,
You
the credit
kept
cards,
annoying
and
her.
cell phones. When the payments got stopped,
You
they shut off
kept
the cell
annoying
phone.
her. Since August, have there been any further calls?
Not since the personal protection order was issued.
Okay, do you have a copy of that?
Absolutely.
Let me see. Was it a permanent order or a temporary order?
It holds for 1 year.
So you consented to this, sir?
Yeah.
Well, if you consented to it, of necessity, the judge had to say to you, you're entitled to a trial, right?
Yeah, we showed up and had a hearing.
Oh, you had a hearing, so the judge found you guilty of harassing her.
Yeah, I told him the story, and I told him the phone calls, and he gave it to her.
Okay, but after that, you stopped.
Yeah, I have not contacted her since.
Anything else you want to tell me about your counterclaim, Ms. Smith?
Yes. As far as for the harassment, this has seriously been going on for a long time. Numerous phone calls and numerous times showing up at my place of employment, numerous times threatening my child, numerous times threatening me. He's physically assaulted me.
After he physically assaulted you, did you remain in the relationship?
No.
When, according to you, was the first time that he physically became violent with you?
On August 7th.
So that was about the time that you were breaking up?
That is correct.
Okay, so this wasn't a history, as you indicated?
No.
Fine. And what did he do to you on the 7th?
On the 7th, he shoved me into a wall and left me captive in the closet of our apartment until I had talked to him.
I don't understand that.
Our closet is a small room. I was in there actually packing some clothes, and he stood in the doorway and refused to allow me to leave.
So he kept you captive there?
Correct.
Because he wanted to talk to you?
Correct.
He's over it. You get over it. He's finished, right?
Correct.
Going to stay away from her? Going to get you $148?
Correct.
Leave her alone?
Without question.
You made a bad choice. Put a period. Move on. Counterclaim is dismissed. That's right.
Parties are 3:38 on the calendar in the matter of Calderon versus Calderon.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Judge. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated. Folks, have a seat, please.
Mr. Calderon, this is your former wife, according to your complaint. Subsequent to your divorce, when all matters of finances had been resolved, your wife used a credit card that was in your name without your authorization, and it was a gas credit card, and according to you, in a very short period of time, a few days, she ran up a bill of well over $500. You want to be compensated for that. Ms. Calderon states in her answer that she believed that you left this card open for her because you were being a nice guy and you knew that she was struggling financially. Of course, you say that when you confronted her with it, her reaction was somewhat different. Can I see a copy of your judgment of divorce, please?
Yes.
You were married for 25 years?
That's correct, Your Honor.
Is that right? And you have kids?
Yes.
How many children?
2.
Grown?
Yes.
It is clear from the judgment of divorce that any and all liabilities incurred after December 14th of 2004 belong to each of you separately. Now, when were these credit card bills made?
October 13th through the 19th.
Of 2005?
Of 2005. I have a
Can I see them, please? How did you become aware of them, sir?
I received a letter of address change, and I knew that I had not changed my address. I didn't even know the credit card existed. And when I called them, they told me that I had requested to change my address, and I thought that there was something wrong with that and asked if there was any charges on the account.
Okay, Ms. Calderon, the ball is in your court. Explain it to me, please.
Basically, the reason that I was in the situation I was in is because I was so heavily in debt and destroyed from what he had done to me from this divorce, because he knew that last year when my daughter graduated high school, my oldest daughter graduated college, and my oldest daughter got married, that I had put a lot of money into that. And
this has nothing to do
well,
with that.
Well, but this is why I was.
Calderon,
this is why.
This has nothing to do with that. This is not.
I would have never used it though.
This is not even a large amount of money. We're talking about a gas credit card where it's clear you allowed someone else to use this gas credit card.
I got gas for my kids. We were all struggling. He destroyed us all.
Just a second. In 4 days, you got gas for your children. You have 2 children and yourself.
Right.
You filled up the cars. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I don't know what's $98.20. That's not a car fill up. Or $83.
Or a case of oil.
A case of oil. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 times. Let us assume 3 people's cars. 13 times in a 4-day period. So, Ms. Calderon, don't play with me. This is not because you needed money.
Yes, it was.
When you enter into an agreement, and I assume that this was your agreement, it looks as if it was boilerplate clauses, you agreed that after December of 2004, you would not make any debts for the other party. You chose not to do that.
His friend told my daughter that he left the card open for me to use because he felt sorry for me because he knew how hard of a time I was having.
Oh, okay, well, that's a different story. Is that person here today?
Yes.
Step up, sir. Tell me your name.
David Dover.
Mr. Dover, did you ever tell Mr. Calderon's daughter that this credit card was left open?
No, ma'am. I never knew the card existed. I never knew anything about it.
Step up. You're the daughter?
Yes.
Your name?
Angela Schubert.
Angela, tell me about this alleged conversation.
We were going to dinner for my birthday, and I was sitting in front, and we had just found out I was pregnant that day. It was August 18th. We picked up my dad from work, and we work at, well, it was before we picked him up for work. And we were just talking about the divorce, you know. I was trying to get to know him since, you know, he lives with my dad now. And he just happened to say, well, your dad did leave a gas card open for your mom. Because we didn't know, because all the gas cards were closed.
Let me ask you this question. Somebody must have been complaining about money.
No.
So, because the statement that you ascribed to this gentleman, well, this is what you said, well, your dad did leave a gas card open for your mom.
We were talking
is
about,
always a response to something said to him.
We were talking about how hard it was for everyone in the divorce, and how it happened. We were talking about how hard it was. And he said, well, you know, your dad left a gas card open for your mom, and, you know, to help her out a little bit.
And you went back and told her, shh.
I didn't tell her right away.
You didn't tell her right away. When did you tell her?
Maybe a week, week and a half, 2 weeks tops.
Okay, so a week and a half, 2 weeks tops, you tell your mother. And your mother didn't have this credit card.
Yes, I do.
Just a second. You didn't have it. According to you, you found it. Listen to me. You found it. When did you find it?
I wasn't trying to use any of the credit cards.
When did you find it?
When she told me he left it open for me and we were having such a hard time.
Well, did you call him and say...
I can't. We don't communicate.
What do you mean? You don't have a telephone?
He communicates through the kids.
Before I would extend his credit based upon hearsay, I would have picked up a telephone or sent him a note. Is it true that I can use this credit card? I certainly would have at least, if I believed that it was true that he held open this credit card, Miss Calderon, I would have tried it for 1 month. He would have gotten the bill, and he would have said, well, I have a $40 bill for gas. I wonder what this is from. But you didn't do that. You charged $500 worth of gas in 4 days. And then, according to your former husband, when he confronted you, because you did call her.
I actually contacted her via email. I don't call her. I had to change my number so many times.
Fine. So you didn't?
But I did contact her.
And what was her response?
She said that go ahead and prosecute her. It would be well worth it for the look on my face.
Can I see it, please?
I was shocked that he wanted to prosecute me.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
I still am in shock that he's done what he's done to us. And
You're shocked.
I never thought he was that cold-blooded, and I still can't believe it.
And later today,
I said, I'm calling the police. And she said she took them, and she pawned them, and she thought she could get them back in my jewelry box before I noticed.
That's what drug addicts do, not casual marijuana smokers.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Alan Calderon says ex-wife Linda Calderon made unauthorized charges on his credit card.
Well, this email acknowledges, Miss Calderon, that you used this card, but you said, I figured I'd be able to make payments just like you would.
If he had a problem with what I got. But I got things to help us because I knew how he always tries to make himself appear to be generous, but his MO is not generosity. And
Listen
I knew
to me, he doesn't have to be generous with you anymore.
He has never been generous with
Miss
me.
Calderon, then you stayed with somebody for 25 years who wasn't generous. You're divorced now. And what you have to do is you have to put a period and move forward. The economics of divorce is never easy. When you try to run two households on the same salaries that you were using to support one household, that's never easy for anybody. But what you cannot do is, you cannot say, I have a contract, and I'm not satisfied with the terms of the contract, so I can, because of necessity, because I was married to him for 25 years, because we have children together, they have needs, whatever, I'm going to extend his credit. You can't do that.
I still am in shock that he's done what he's done to us.
Listen to me.
And
You're shocked.
I never thought he was that cold-blooded, and I still can't believe it.
The retaliation was not to use a credit card.
I didn't do it in retaliation.
Well, then you got to pay it. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $507. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
I was married to a snake, and I had no idea I was.
My ex-wife has been harassing me, and this is just another form of harassment.
It's all because of self-indulgence and selfishness that someone would do this to their family in the first place.
She actually moved out on me, but if you hear her talk, she'd think that, I left her.
I don't know who he is, and I thought that, he really was trying to be generous and help us.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter, Schoonmaker versus Huddleston. Step forward.
Susan Jane Schoonmaker is suing her daughter, 20-year-old Heather Huddleston, for stealing and pawning her wedding rings. Heather claims she had her mother's permission.
The Schoonmaker, this young lady is your daughter, and according to your complaint, she owes you some money. She owes you some money because, as a result, according to you, of her drug abuse, she fell behind in her rent. She and her boyfriend, and she came to you for money, and you gave her jewelry to pawn. She pawned the jewelry. She was supposed to get it out. She didn't. You lost the jewelry. You want the money. Is that right?
Well, she also stole my wedding rings out of my jewelry box and pawned them without my knowledge.
For how long has your daughter had a drug problem?
I didn't know that she had one. She told me it was her boyfriend.
When she came to you and asked for money, she told you that the boyfriend had a drug problem?
She said that he was spending money on things he shouldn't be. He was doing drugs and stuff like that.
So then why in the world would you give her jewelry to pawn?
I gave it to her so she would have a place to live. I didn't want her.
Why couldn't she come home?
I have other children that I don't want exposed to the lifestyle that she was doing.
Well, just a second. I thought you said there was nothing wrong with her lifestyle. It was the boyfriend.
I don't know what her lifestyle was. I know that she was spending money and doing things that she should not be doing.
Then you
That's the reason that
you
she
shouldn't
left.
have given her your jewelry.
You're right.
So then what are you doing in court?
I'm doing it in court because she stole rings from my jewelry box that I had no knowledge of.
I want you to forget about the pawn jewelry.
Right.
And I think that you knew what her lifestyle was, and that if you gave her jewelry to pawn, there was no legitimate expectation of you getting this money back, because drug abusers don't return money. Drug abusers put money in their arms or up their noses. Right, Miss Huddleston?
Yes, ma'am.
Your mother says that after she gave you this jewelry to pawn, which you did, you stole some property from her. Did you?
That's not true.
Well, tell me about these wedding rings that she said that you took.
The wedding rings she never wore, and I came upon a time when I needed money for rent, and she told me to go ahead and take the jewelry out of her jewelry box, the wedding rings, to pawn them so I could pay rent, because she never wore them. She hasn't worn them in 5 years.
That's not true.
What other jewelry did she give you?
Previously, she had given me a bag of gold necklaces and a ring that my grandmother had given her. She offered it. I never asked her for money. I told her that I was having problems, and she offered it to me.
That's not true.
What kind of drugs were you or are you involved with?
I was smoking marijuana, and she knew.
And the boyfriend?
Anything and everything.
But not you?
The only thing I ever did was marijuana.
Susan Jane Schoonmaker says her daughter, Heather Huddleston, stole her wedding rings and pawned them.
Still with the boyfriend?
Nope.
Who do you live with now?
I live with friends in Arizona.
Do you work?
Not yet. I'm a student.
You're a student where?
At massage therapy school.
Who pays for it?
I got a grant.
Who pays for your living expenses?
I do.
From what?
I have money.
From what?
Doing various jobs. I clean houses and babysit.
Oh, what a bunch of baloney. What a bunch of baloney.
It's true.
My dear Miss Huddleston, you wouldn't know the truth if it came up and cracked you in the face. The wedding rings. When did you find out that they were missing?
When I went to I always go into my jewelry box because I keep my earrings and everything in there. I wasn't wearing the rings because one of the diamonds was loose.
Don't tell me, but you weren't wearing them. You weren't wearing them.
I wasn't wearing them, and they were gone. I called her at school. She was going to massage therapy school at the time when this happened, and I said, my wedding rings are gone. Do you know where they are? Have you done? She goes, no, I don't know, but when I come home, I will help you find them. And she came home, and I sat her down, and I said, I'm calling the police. And once the police are involved, if you're involved, you're going to jail because I can't stop it. And she said she took them, and she pawned them, and she thought she could get them back in my jewelry box before I noticed.
That's what drug addicts do.
I know.
Not casual marijuana smokers. How much were the wedding rings pawned for?
$150.
Did you go to the pawn shop to try to get them back?
I didn't know what pawn shop it was, and her boyfriend called me and told me after she left him, for no reason, he didn't even know that she had left him, that he went down to the pawn shop because that's where he gave her the money to go down and pick them up and bring them to me. She told me she was on her way to my house to do laundry and bring me my rings and never showed up. And this is the first time I've seen her since then. The pawn shop had sold all the rings a while ago.
You know who she's living with now?
A guy that she met on the internet.
One guy? Or
One
friend?
guy with his old girlfriend and his baby.
How old is she?
She'll be 21 in December. I've tried to help her. I don't know how else to help her. And I feel like she needs to start paying for the things that she's doing. And I just thought here at least she would start seeing what her actions are going to start becoming. They're going to get worse. I don't want to have to pick her up in jail. And I won't.
Sometimes you have to hit rock bottom before you're ready to turn your life around.
That's what I'm hoping.
When did she leave home?
She left home when she was 19.
You go to live with this boyfriend?
She knew him a week and left.
Who else lives at home with you?
My 17-year-old daughter, my 12-year-old daughter, and my 10-year-old son.
You know what these rings were appraised for that she took?
I went in and I got an estimate on what it would cost to replace all of the rings.
Not all the rings.
No, I know, but it has just them separated. My wedding ring and my engagement ring set is on here. $28.99 for the engagement ring and $880 for the wedding ring.
Are you still married to the man who gave you the rings?
Yes, I am. We've lived together for 16 years.
He's not her father?
He's not her father. But you'd never know the difference.
Anything you want to say?
She told me that those rings were remnants of an unhappy marriage and that she was happy to get rid of them. And that's why she let me pawn them. And I
never said that.
I just think it's really funny, you know, she was helping me out, and now because she's getting in trouble from my stepdad and my grandma, she's got to turn around and blame it on me, and I just don't think that's fair.
What do you think is fair?
I didn't do anything wrong. She gave it to me.
You did do something wrong. You came to your mother and you said, I got a drug addict boyfriend, I'm behind in the rent, you were living a lifestyle that was inappropriate, and you came to your mother, who clearly is not a rich lady, because if she was a rich lady, she would have had the money to give you for the rent. She didn't, so all she had was this bag of jewelry, and you're a big girl. You chose to be a big girl. You chose to move out of your house and live on your own.
I never asked her to help me. She offered to help.
How would she know that you needed anything unless you came to her and said, I don't have rent? Listen to me. How would she know that you needed money unless you came to her and told her that you didn't have rent money?
Because I came over one day and I was upset. And like any caring mother would, she asked what was wrong. At least I thought she was caring. Sorry.
You got to do the right thing. You still have time. If you continue to make bad choices in your life, you know what's going to happen. You're going to end up being, instead of a 20-year-old bum, a 40-year-old bum. If you lie down with dirt, you get dirty. Did you ever hear that expression? Did everybody say anything like that to you? If you lie down in dirt, you're going to get dirty. And it sounds to me like you went from the frying pan into the fire. It's not too late. You're still a young girl. But you better start making right choices. Because if you don't make right choices, you're going to end up a 40-year-old dirty girl instead of a 20-year-old dirty girl. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $2,500. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out. 3:33 on the calendar. Sorry, 3:35 on the calendar. In the matter of Dotson versus Harrison.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Judge. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated, ma'am. Have a seat.
Ms. Dotson, according to the complaint that I've read, the defendant used to be a boyfriend of yours. He is no longer a boyfriend of yours, but you claim that after you had already broken up, he vandalized your car on 2 separate occasions. Mr. Harrison says that he did no such thing. When did you end your relationship with him?
Approximately around July 15th of 2005.
How long had you been together?
Approximately about 1.5 years.
Did you ever live together?
Yes, ma'am.
For how long?
Approximately 1 year.
Did you live in your house or his house?
My home.
Who do you live with?
I live with myself and my children.
How old are your children?
I have a 9-year-old, a 4-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 1-year-old.
When did he move out?
Probably around June of 2005. And
why?
It wasn't working. I had a lot of stuff going on in my life, and I felt like life was taking me in other directions, and I felt like I couldn't do all the things I needed to with him. He was becoming very controlling, very possessive.
Was he working when he moved in with you?
Yes, he was.
Did he remain employed during the year that he lived there?
No.
He did not?
He did not.
When did he lose his job?
Approximately 4 months after we lived together.
Were you working?
Yes.
What kind of work do you do?
I'm a full-time student at IUSB, and I also tutor at Jackson Middle School.
Okay. When was the first incident of your car being vandalized?
September 15th.
Tell me what happened.
That day I actually had surgery at St. Joe Medical Center, and after that, my friend Christine, she's right here, her and I and Jesse Harrison, we all went to my friend Heather's house.
How did he get involved with you on that day if you had broken up 2 months before?
I called him from my home, and I told him that I was having surgery that day, and he asked me if I wanted him to come to the hospital. And I told him I didn't care, but inside I felt like I needed him for support. He's been my main support person. And then when I was at the hospital and they were taking me to the pre-op, he showed up.
Did he drive you home?
No.
Who took you home?
Christine drove her car, and she drove me and her to Heather's, and he drove my truck. And when I left the hospital, I was upset that he was driving my truck. I did not want him to do that because he has no license. And when we got to Heather's house, we had this argument, and he got mad at me because I didn't want him to drive the truck. And he said, well, I was there for you at the hospital. And I told him, you didn't have to be there for me at the hospital. I had somebody else who could have been.
That's not true, Your Honor.
Shh. Come back to you. Go ahead.
And at that point, he just yelled, and these were his words verbatim. He said, who, Petey? And then he kicked my truck and threw a flower pot at it. And then he ran between 2 houses, and that's when I saw an officer on a bike. And I stopped him, and he made a police report for me.
Okay. When was the next time that your car was vandalized?
The next accident was on the 16th of September, 2005.
Go ahead.
Again, at that time, I was still under medication for my surgery. My doctor told me that I needed to do bed rest for a week. At that time, I went over to my friend Christine's house. Jesse was there, and...
How did he get there?
He drove me.
So you called him again?
I had to take my
Just
kids.
a second. So after you saw him kick your truck and throw a flower pot at it and report it to the police, you called him again to pick you up?
Your Honor.
Just a second. Is that what you're telling me? Don't give
Yes,
me an
ma'am.
excuse. That's a yes.
Yes, ma'am.
When had you called him?
You know, I'm not...
That morning? The evening after? When?
I think it was the next morning.
Where were your children?
My children were at my friend Christine's house. I needed to take them some supplies, and I wasn't allowed to drive.
So you called him and said what?
I asked him if he could take me to take Christine some supplies.
And what did he say?
Yes.
You didn't say to him, I reported you to the police yesterday?
No, he knew. He saw the police while he was running.
No, it's not true.
He doesn't know how the police got there, madam. I'm asking you whether you told him that you had called the police the day before.
No, I did not tell him that I called the police the day before.
You just said, do me a favor, pick me up and take me over. How was he supposed to pick you up and take you over to Christine's house?
I asked him to take me in my truck.
You asked him to drive?
Yes.
So it was okay for him to drive without a license when you asked him to, but you were annoyed that he drove without a license the day before.
The day before, I did not feel comfortable being with him.
That's not my question. You told me a moment ago, madam, that the day before you had an argument with him because you didn't want him to drive your car because he didn't have a license. That's what you told me. But the next day, because you needed to use him for something else, you told him to come to your house, pick you up, use your car, and take you to your friend Christine's house.
That is correct. My children needed supplies.
They needed water?
Diapers.
Is she incapable?
She had 5 kids at her house at that time, and she couldn't leave.
License, diapers. License, diapers. You used him. Mr. Harrison, after you went back over there, her car was vandalized again, sir. Were you angry on both of those occasions?
No, I didn't. I wasn't angry. It's just that she was just running her mouth, or she wanted to go in the house, and I didn't want to stay there.
Why don't you work?
I was working for her brother, detailing cars at his car lot, until she came up there starting trouble, and now I just go from car lot time to time and detail cars.
Is that how you support yourself?
That's
Yes,
not
ma'am.
true.
What does he do?
Actually, he was working for my brother, and he got fired from my brother's car lot because he was being obsessive and controlling, and my brother didn't want to be a part of it. At this time, he doesn't go from car lot to car lot detailing.
Yeah.
He does not do that. He
that's
frequently
not true.
sells stereos.
Ms. Totson, although it looks to me as if butter would melt in your mouth and that you're a very intelligent woman, you're also a user. You used him like a rubber band. You say, get out, then come back, come to the hospital, I need your support, don't use my truck. Well, today you can't use my truck, tomorrow you can use my truck because I have to go someplace. And what I'm telling you is you can't toy with somebody's emotions like that. That's unacceptable behavior for an adult.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
I need you. Now I'm finished with you. I need you again. Now I'm finished with you. That's cruel.
And later today,
the counselor asked me if I loved her, and I said yes. And did she love me? And she said she didn't know. And I wanted this relationship to last. She was very important to me.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Tara Dotson says her ex-boyfriend, Jesse Harrison, owes for kicking her truck. Jesse says Tara got him fired from his job.
Madam, if you needed somebody additionally to give you moral support in the hospital and you had already kicked him out of your house, you don't call him again for the day.
Well, Your Honor, my mom is deceased. My best friend was watching my kids. Who else loves me? I know he does.
Just a second. Well, that's using him. That's exactly what I'm saying to you. That's exactly what I'm saying to you. He loves you, but you don't love him. So if what you're doing is toying with his emotions, because you're saying, I need you.
Your Honor, I...
Let's just listen. I need you. Now I'm finished with you. I need you again. Now I'm finished with you. That's cruel. And if what you're telling me is he loves you, and you know that, that makes you even the more cruel. You get me? What year is your truck?
My truck is in 1998.
And you have pictures of the damage that he did to your truck?
Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to see it, please. And your brother has a body repair shop?
No, actually, my brother has a car lot. He sells
car
used
lot.
cars.
Does he also repair cars?
No.
No. That's too bad. Well, I get some stuff there to detail it a little bit. And you could probably get that dent pulled out by somebody for a couple of $100. Nowhere near $1,700. Miss Dotson, you have to learn to be a nicer person, madam.
I understand, Your Honor.
Good. Judgment for the plaintiff. Not for $1,700, for $300. Get your car fixed for that. That's all. Step out.
Party's out of shoes. You may step out.
She kept calling me. I wasn't even with her. She kept calling me, asking me to do stuff for her, and I wasn't with her, you know, maybe because wasn't nobody else paying no attention to her.
There was nobody else who could take me where I needed to go.
And I still loved her, but I guess I got down wrong in the end.
In my mind, it wasn't about using him. It was about needing to get my kids what they needed, and I knew he would help.
Only for our kids, you know.
I'm not going to call him.
Man, she too crazy for me.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Barch versus Jones. Step forward, please.
Robert Barch is suing his ex-fiancée, Carla Jones, for money loaned and forged checks. Carla is countersuing, claiming Robert made false accusations to her probation officer.
Mr. Barch, Miss Jones used to be your living girlfriend?
She was my fiancée.
And according to your complaint, she owes you some money. First for a loan, for insurance, well over a year ago. And then you claim that at some point she forged some checks.
Yes, ma'am.
And then you claim she's got some of your personal property.
Yes, ma'am.
Miss Jones says none of them were loans. She did, in fact, sign your name to checks. You knew about that. You did not report those forged checks, according to you, when you found out about them. But you continued to live together as a couple. But when you broke up, you, according to you, called her parole officer. You're on parole for something?
I'm off now.
And you called her parole officer to report the forged checks. Is that right?
Yes.
Why'd you do that for?
Because she was forging checks while on parole, and
No, look at me, look at me.
It was a violation.
Let's get a timeline.
It's a violation.
Mr. Barsh, listen to me. Don't interrupt me when I'm speaking.
Excuse me.
According to you, it was in October of 2004 that you found out that she had signed your name to some checks.
Yes.
How much in total were the checks that she signed?
$2,900.
And what were they for?
They were made out to her, signed by her, and cashed by her, and deposited to her account.
Okay. Now, when did you find out about these checks? So was that in October?
It was after she moved out in October.
So after you found out about these forged checks, how long did it take you to call her parole officer?
It took me until March of 2005.
Okay. Let's go. Checks, $2,900 worth.
No, nothing was stolen from him. No forged checks. We would pay our bills together. I would tally up how much utilities were or groceries, and I'd say, I need X amount of dollars. And he'd say, okay, go ahead and get a check, write it for that, deposit it in there, and pay the bills. And I'd
deposit it where?
Into my checking account. I'd always call him at work, or he would be home when we did it, and he would say, go put that in your checking account and then pay the bills, because I paid everything online.
What do you want parole for? Anything to do with checks?
I'm not on parole. I was on probation.
Probation for anything having to do with checks?
No, it was for a DUI.
Oh. How long were you living together?
About 2.5 years.
Who paid the bills, sir?
The arrangement was that I paid the rent because it was a considerable amount of money, and she picked up the tab for the utilities and the food.
What precipitated your leaving in October of 2004?
Well, the relationship was kind of going sour, and in August of 2004, we had been going to some counseling to see if we could work through some of the issues. And I realized in my heart that it just wasn't going to work out for me, that I wasn't going to be able to go through with the relationship. And of course, he was very upset. And I told him at the end of the lease, which was November 1st of 2004, that I'd be moving out by then and getting my own place.
Robert Barch says ex-fiancée Carla Jones stole money by forging his checks. Carla is countersuing, claiming Robert made false accusations to her probation officer.
Okay. When for the first time, Miss Jones, did the plaintiff confront you about these checks?
Towards the end of the year after I had moved out. We were still talking to each other, and he would come over sometimes on the weekends, and I just felt really sorry for him.
Just tell me what he said to you about the checks.
He called me on the phone close to Christmas. I said I didn't want to see him anymore. I said I don't want you coming over anymore. I don't want to see you at all. It's done. I don't even want to be friends with you. And that's when he threatened he was going to go to the police station and tell them that I forged these checks while we were together. And I said, you know, that's a lie. How can you go tell a lie like that. And he says, I can say whatever I want. And then in March, I finally just told him, I said, I can't see you anymore. We're kind of seeing each other on and off, on and off. Well, he told me he was going to go to the police and do this. So I guess the next day, which was March 14th.
So the first time he spoke to you about it was in December of 2004.
Threatening to do this.
On what date did you contact her probation officer?
It was the 15th of March.
What happened between December and March, sir?
I was investigating the
You already knew about it, and you confronted her with them. And if you had been concerned that she had forged your name to checks and you felt that it was the right thing to do to notify her probation officer, why didn't you do it in December or January or February?
I was hesitant. I wanted the relationship to go on. During the counseling sessions, the counselor asked me if I loved her, and I said yes. And the counselor asked her, did she love me? And she said she didn't know. And the counselor said, did you love him when you took that engagement ring? And she said, I don't know. And I wanted this relationship to last. It was very important to me. She was very important to me. And I figured that the less waves, the better the chances of the relationship working.
But it didn't work, sir.
It didn't, no, it didn't work.
It didn't work. And the response to it not working is not to behave in a retaliatory way.
That's right.
The response to it not working is say, you went to counseling, she didn't deceive you. She said, we'll go to counseling, we'll see if we can get it to work. And she was being honest. She said, I don't know my feelings. She wasn't trying to be hurtful. If she wanted to be hurtful, she wouldn't have gone to counseling with you.
She deceived me when she accepted the engagement ring.
No, you know, you're talking about there's hard evidence and then there's soft evidence. You know, the divorce rate in this country is 52%. Now, all of those people who divorce, when they sit back, you know, a year later, 6 months later, 5 years later, they say, gee, I wonder if I really loved him. I wonder if I really loved her when I walked down the aisle. You know, or was it something else? It was, you got to get married, or, you know, I fell in love with the beautiful face, or I fell in love with the bank account, whatever it was. Was it really him? I'm really not sure. You know, I really don't know in my heart anymore. That's what people say to themselves.
It was the bank account.
Well, it's all a package. You know, she's an attractive lady, right?
Yes, she is.
She's a very attractive lady, well-spoken. Do you think that if she was an unattractive lady and not well-spoken, you would have been attracted to her? No. You may have gotten to know her better and said, gee, she's got a wonderful soul. But what attracted you to her initially was she's a pretty lady, she seems intelligent, and she's well-spoken, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Part of your package is that you had some dough. That's it. You just have to accept that. And you know, I'm not such a genius that I figured this out myself, because Donald Trump's wife was interviewed recently, and they said to her, would you be married to him if he wasn't Donald Trump, if he wasn't a multimillionaire, if he wasn't who he is? And she said, you think he'd be married to me if I didn't look like this? Do yourself a big favor. Put a period. It didn't work out. You both gave it your best shot. You should not have called a probation officer. It was a nasty thing to do. And you should not have waited to see the result of this counseling before you decided that what she did was criminal, because then I find your motives suspect.
The reason we actually separated was in August. I told her that her drinking had become a problem, and if she didn't stop drinking, we were not going to renew the lease and live together.
But even after that, you went to counseling with her, because according to you, you loved her.
I did love her.
What I'm telling you is, it didn't work out. That's very sad. Looks like a nice guy. I hope you find another nice one.
She's engaged to another guy already.
Well, then you should look up and say, thank you, God, I didn't make a mistake. Right? Instead of suing her. The case is dismissed, sir.
Versus Rundell. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated.
Mr. White, you and the defendant lived together, according to the complaint that I've read, for a period of time. And it is your claim that during that time you made a loan to her in the amount of $5,000 as a retainer for an attorney, because she was having some legal problems. The defendant says that while she acknowledges that you wired the money into a joint bank account that you had for the attorney, that money was paid back, because all that money that was in the joint bank account was put in by both of you subsequently. So the money was repaid.
In my opinion, yes, it was.
When did you start living together, Mr. White?
We started living together in April of '04.
How long had you known each other before you moved in together?
I knew of her approximately a year prior to that.
What does that mean?
Well, I was best friends with her brother, and basically met her through her brother.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, when you moved in together in April of 2004, did you move into her place, your place, or a mutual place?
My place.
And, Your Honor, it was July of '04.
She's probably right, Mr. White.
Yeah, we had a birthday party for me in April, so yeah, then it was shortly after that. That's correct.
What was the financial arrangement when she moved into your house?
Financial arrangement, we really didn't establish any. I paid my bills and she paid her bills. She did insist that she put her check into my checking account. That didn't have anything to do with this particular item.
Just a second.
Yeah.
She put her paycheck into your checking account.
That's correct.
How much was your paycheck, Ms. Rundell?
$16.88 a month. And it was not a joint checking account. It was his checking account. I did not have access to that account in any way.
When did you make your first deposit into his checking account of $16.88?
I believe it would have been the month of July. I moved in roughly maybe the second week in July after we'd returned from vacation.
So let's be on the safe side. Let's say August.
That would be safe to say.
And how many months did you put your paycheck into that joint account?
Every month.
Until when?
Until January. My paychecks ended in January. Unemployment
August,
started.
September, October, November, December. 5 months.
And January.
And January.
Correct.
So it's 6 months, and that's easily verifiable by looking at your bank statement.
No, I don't agree with her putting that much money in there. She didn't have any credit, so she was using my bank to cash her checks. I wasn't aware that she was putting that money into my checking account every time.
This is a savings account statement right here. I could have put it in my savings had I been allowed to. This shows that there was no money that went into this account until a tax return was automatically deposited in the month of March.
Do you have your bank statement, sir?
No, ma'am, I don't. I just have a check that I had wrote her. I didn't even know she had a savings account.
I don't care whether you knew she had a savings account or not, sir. You get a checking account statement every month.
Correct.
And every month you would see a deposit in there.
Right.
And that deposit would not be your deposit. I mean, we know what
Correct.
our deposits are. So she
Correct.
was depositing her check into your account. And that account would also show certain withdrawals if she was using your checking account as merely just a revolving door for her money. She was putting it in and cashing it.
She was putting her check into my checking account during the beginning of her stay at my place, and then we were using my check to write checks for all the bills.
It was not in name a joint account, but it was a joint account because that money was being used to pay joint bills.
Correct.
$16.88 per month.
Correct.
Are you chewing gum?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so let us assume everything that you say is correct. That for 6 months you put in $16.88 a month.
Yes.
That comes to $10,128. Now, why did you need an attorney?
I had filed a police report as a mandatory reporter with the police department there locally where I live.
Is it a criminal matter?
Yes, ma'am.
Is the matter still pending?
Yes, ma'am.
And you retained a private attorney?
Correct.
And you discussed that with Mr. White?
Correct.
Is that right, sir?
Yes, I had no knowledge of her making this report.
I don't care about the
Okay.
substance of the case.
Okay.
The need for an attorney, something else.
Correct. We did discuss the need for an attorney, and it was important that she hired a good one for this situation.
So what did you say to her?
So we made arrangements to lend her $5,000 off my credit card.
That's a conclusion, sir.
We had talked about this and discussed we needed to retain $5,000 for this attorney, and we decided to take this off of a credit card that I have. I had no credit card debts at all. One of the qualities she talked about with me is that I wasn't in any debt. This was a special occasion that I needed to help her out on, so I decided to take a credit card, dump the credit card into my checking account, and give her a check on November 28th for $5,000. She told me when she got her income tax that she would give me half of it in one lump sum and make payments on the rest, and I was fine with that.
That is not true.
Well, tell me what the discussion was, Ms. Rundell.
The discussion, there was never a discussion around the credit card, just like there wasn't a discussion about how we were going to pay our bills when the money was lumped together in the checking account. What we had discussed on many different occasions was how we were going to use the money wisely. This chunk of money, which would have been around $6,000 for the tax return, what were we going to do with it?
You were going to pay me
different.
half that.
I was talking. On many different occasions, we talked about different things. We talked about we would take a trip, but not too far. Didn't want to spend too much money. We talked about paying a big chunk of it to Bank One credit card, which the attorney came off of. We also talked about paying off his Washington State unemployment money that he still owed when I moved in was $4,000. It was down to $1,500. We wanted to eliminate that payment each month.
All right, let's get back to talking a little bit turkey, Ms. Rundell. It is your defense that you put in your check into the account and you were living like a married couple.
Correct.
And when you moved in together in July, it was your intention that your money be spent on household bills. And you didn't need an attorney until what month?
October.
That's not a household bill. So that what it really did was cut your participation in the household bills in half. Because if you deposited $10,000 into this account to pay for your expenses during the course of that 6 months, madam, and you withdrew $5,000 out of it for your own personal use, then it's very possible that Mr. White is correct, that it was anticipated that you would be repaying this account when you got your tax return.
It wasn't repaying that account. The tax return coming in and was going to be used to pay bills wisely, not just on a credit card. This has nothing to do with paying back the credit card. It has to do with Mr. White and his continued abuse and harassment that has not stopped and will not stop.
It will stop when he gets his money back.
That's right. Trust me, it won't stop.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
Mr. White feels as if he's a fool because he had this outlay of money. You're still using the services of a lawyer.
Correct.
You're still living off of that $5,000.
And later today,
He smoked every single one of his paychecks.
You smoking dope?
Methamphetamines, Your Honor.
Oh, you doing methamphetamines?
Half that went to her nose also.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. James White says ex-fiancée Karen Rundell owes for a loan to retain a lawyer. Karen says she gave her paycheck to James the entire time they lived together.
There isn't a question in my mind that we probably wouldn't be here having this discussion if the two of you were still together. Because if you were still together, you would be continuing to contribute your $16.88 a month into this account. And eventually, this $5,000 would be paid back from payments to the credit card. But you're not together anymore. And Mr. White feels as if he's a fool because he had this outlay of money, and now you're not together anymore. You got your tax return back. There was discussion about paying back this, whatever, Capital One card or whatever it is. Some of the money that he gave you to pay your lawyer. You're still using the services of a lawyer, correct?
Correct.
Have you given the lawyer any more money?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so you're still living off of that $5,000. And he says, minimally, our agreement was that she was going to continue to put her $16.88 into the account so we could at least pay the lawyer back from that money. That stopped. Listen, you want him to leave you alone?
I do.
Pay him his money. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $5,000. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Karen's good. I mean, I always said she should have been an actress or an attorney.
I've been thrown around by him. I've had a black eye from the man.
I received a restraining order by an officer at work. I was totally floored.
Throw methamphetamines into it and see what happens.
She wrote down some pretty hellacious remarks on the restraining order, and all which was dismissed.
I wanted him to change, and I loved the man.
She's been garnished her wages. Her creditors have been after her.
It's going to spiral downhill. It's not going to change.
She was sly. I should have looked at those red flags at the very beginning.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Pryber Floyd versus Higgs. Step forward.
21-year-old Cassie Pryber Floyd is suing her ex-boyfriend, 22-year-old Andrew Higgs, for unpaid loans and for breaking her windshield with his cell phone.
According to your complaint, Cassie, the defendant, who was your boyfriend, needed some money for rent. You loaned him $300, then you had a fight, and he broke your windshield in your car. You want him to fix it, and then you want money for chauffeuring him around to various things, including seeing his daughter.
Correct.
You have a daughter?
Yes, ma'am.
How old is she?
Year-old.
You support her?
Yes.
How much do you send?
I send at least $150 every week.
If child's mother was here, would she tell me that you spend $150 a week on your daughter?
Yes.
All right, Cassie, so let me hear about this first loan that you made him. When was it?
The first loan was May 4th.
Tell me about it.
Andrew was staying in a hotel, and his brother could not loan him any more money, and he needed money for rent to be able to stay in the hotel. So he asked me if I could loan him the money for the rent. He promised to pay me back.
That's a lie, Your Honor.
He promised to pay me back, even if he had to give me his paychecks until it was paid off. I have a witness that was there.
Where did this conversation take place?
At his hotel room.
Where were you staying at the time?
I was living in Harrisonburg.
Were you staying in the hotel?
No, I was not.
Did you ever stay in the hotel?
I stayed one night.
It's a lie.
I'm going to give you one more opportunity, then I'm going to throw you out of here, which is not a good thing. You do want to be heard, don't you?
Yes, sir, Your Honor.
How many nights did you spend there, Cassie? And don't make it difficult for me.
Only one night, Your Honor.
In total?
In total.
Okay, now when was this incident with the windshield?
The windshield incident was on June 22nd.
Between May 4th and June 22nd, did he give you any money?
No.
Did you ask him about it?
I asked him pretty much every day for it. He kept saying, I need to give my daughter's mom child support money, or I need it for drugs. He smoked almost every single one of his paychecks.
Well, didn't that give you a clue, Cassie, that this was not the kind of person you wanted to be around?
For a while, I did stop talking to him. He called me on June 22nd, said he was having problems with his daughter's mom.
What were the problems he was having with his daughter's mother?
He was not paying her child support, and she did not want to let him see her.
What were you doing with your money?
I was paying my rent.
Were you smoking dope?
No.
Methamphetamines, Your Honor.
Ooh, were you doing methamphetamines?
No, ma'am.
That's a kind of nasty story to make up about you.
But actually, Your Honor, we did take part in that there for a couple weeks, but she was involved just as well as I was.
So if I asked you if you were doing drugs, the answer was yes.
But the money that she loaned...
Just a sec. The answer would be yes.
Right. The money that she loaned me was actually because she was living with me at the time, and plus half that went to her nose also.
That's not true, Your Honor.
She was living down there with me because she lives house to house. She can't take care of her kids. She's been living in 7 different houses in the past year because she can't hold a job. She can't do nothing.
Where are you working now?
I'm a waitress.
Where?
At IHOP.
How long have you been there?
On and off for 4 years.
On and off doesn't tell me. How long have you been there the last stint there?
Probably about 4 months. No, give or take 3 months, 2 months. I'm sorry.
I got it.
Cassie Pryber Floyd says ex-boyfriend Andrew Higgs owes for loans and a broken windshield. Each is accusing the other of being a drug addict.
All right, my dear. Now you can tell me about the windshield.
I had picked Andrew up on June 22nd. We had gone back to one of his witnesses' houses, and everybody was drinking. He had about 2 40-size bottles of beer. Him and I had gotten into an argument. He was getting rowdy with everybody. So I told him I was going to take him home. On our way home, I received a phone call, and he got upset about the phone call and threw his cell phone up into the dash of my car, breaking and spiderwebbing my windshield.
Okay, let's hear about the windshield incident. Andrew.
We was at the witness's house drinking.
What day of the week was that?
Wednesday, I believe.
Wednesday. What time did you get there? Whose house was it? Raise your hand. What time?
7:30, 8 o'clock.
In the evening?
Yes, ma'am.
And how many children do you have? 2?
Yes, ma'am.
Where are they?
One is with me, and the other one was with her dad.
The one that's with you is how old?
She's 4.
And the one that's with her dad is how old?
She's 2.
Where was the one that lives with you at 7:30 in the evening on Wednesday?
Probably spending time with my father. My parents have joint custody, but I have primary physical custody. When my father and my stepmom have time, they do spend time with her.
That is not true. You got a lot of growing up to do.
Yes, I know that.
You know, her father takes care of her daughter. She gets her maybe once a month.
I got it.
I have her every day, Your Honor.
Listen to me, Cassie. When a court has to get involved and give grandparents legal custody of a child.
That's not what happened, Your Honor.
No?
Her father ended up in jail, and
yes,
I did not want him to have to fight me for custody because he was in jail. My dad and my stepmom do have joint custody of
Cassie!
For that.
That is a lot of baloney. Do you want me to tell you why?
Why?
I was a family court judge for many, many years. People in prison do not sue for custody. And the only reason grandparents get custody of children is because a parent is unable, physically or emotionally, to take care of them. That's why a court gives grandparents custody of children. So I'm telling you, you better grow up. You two. Doing drugs jointly or independently not only is wasteful, since you work at IHOP, and you work where, sir?
I'm a truck driver.
Well, a truck driver who does methamphetamines is not a truck driver that I would like to have driving my truck or on the road.
Your Honor, I don't...
Do we understand each other, sir?
Yes, Your Honor.
Now tell me what happened in the car when her windshield got smashed.
She got a phone call from a witness here saying that it was another guy waiting at her house for her. And me and her got in an argument. Instead of losing my cool, I tossed her.
Oh, don't interrupt. Sure, it's true.
I just threw my phone up against the window. And then next day, well, she went back to my witness's house and was laughing, saying that she hit me and everything. And
she hit you.
And next day, she realized that her windshield was broken. She called me up. It's like, yeah, when you threw my phone, you broke my windshield. And she's like, well, I'm not really worried about it because 2 days later, we got back together.
All right. And then you want money for driving him around to see his daughter. Is that right? That's the last part of your lawsuit?
Yes, ma'am.
Forget it. I don't even want to hear anymore. Listen, I'm going to make short work of the two of you. So far, between the two of you, you have managed to ruin your young lives yourselves and bring 3 offspring into this world, none of whom you are caring for. You have done enough damage. Grow up. The time you came here to file a case, to come here, you should have better spent doing something productive. Do we understand each other?
Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor,
Quiet. There isn't a question in my mind, sir, that if I were to ask the mother of your child whether each and every week she gets $150 from you, I would not get an affirmative response.
Yes, you would.
Maybe once in a while you send it. Put your hand down. Either one of you two ladies the mother?
No, but I'm...
I don't care. I just ask a question. Either one of you the mother of this child? Good. Then shut up. You get me? You made 3 babies. You tortured enough people. Grow up. Especially you. That's all. Out.
Parties are excused versus Scott. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Folks, have a seat.
Mr. Horner, this sort of comes under the category of no good deed goes unpunished.
Yes, ma'am.
Is this your wife?
Yes, ma'am.
And?
My daughter-in-law.
You and your wife befriended Mr. Scott. He had been a friend of your son's?
Correct.
And at some point, you allowed him to move into your home?
Yes.
Where's your family?
My parents live in Plainville, Massachusetts. I'm currently residing with them.
Was there any reason why you weren't residing with them when you moved in with the Horners?
When I graduated from high school, I kind of made a promise to myself that I wasn't going to be one of those kids that stays living with their parents, and I had moved out. And my roommate at the time decided he wanted to move back in with his parents, and I still, you know, didn't want to move back in and be one of those kids. And they had offered for me to move in and pay rent, so I taken them up on the offer, and I was paying $75 a week to live with them.
And you were also doing some work for them?
Yes, ma'am. I was working for Mark's wife, Susan, as a maintenance worker, and I had also worked during the Patriots games for Mark at one of his sausage stands.
That's your business?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So this is what the lawsuit is about. At some point, Mr. Scott was driving a truck of yours, and he rear-ended somebody and caused some damage to the front end of your truck.
Yes, ma'am.
You agreed with him that he would either pay the deductible, which was $1,000, or fix the truck.
Yes.
Did you do either of those 2 things?
No, ma'am. When this originally happened...
No, I'm just answering my question. So the answer is no.
No, ma'am.
And sometime later, you and your wife were going away for holiday. Mr. Scott was remaining in the house, and according to your complaint, you said to him, no parties.
Correct.
You came back unexpectedly because there was a death in the family, and you found evidence of party.
Looked like he partied like a rock star.
And subsequently, you found the hot tub cover ripped.
Not only ripped, but there was food particles, cigarette butts, beer caps floating in the hot tub.
In the hot tub. Nasty.
Nasty.
And you and Mr. Scott then got into a heated discussion. He left.
Correct.
And when he left his bed and his bicycle, which he wants back, which is the subject of his counterclaim.
Yes, ma'am.
He says that you told him until you sign a promissory note to pay for the damage to the hot tub and the truck, you don't get your stuff back.
Correct.
Mr. Scott says that you told him to forget about the truck.
When the accident had originally occurred, the deductible, I was told the deductible was $500, and we had come to an agreement where I wouldn't have to pay it because the person he was supposedly selling the truck to hadn't paid anything for it, and the truck was 13 years old and had over 200,000 miles on it, and it was only about a softball-sized dent in the front bumper.
I have pictures of the truck.
Okay, so according to you, he said, forget about it.
Yes.
And about the damage to the hot tub?
Actually, I have my witness here, Leanne. She's a friend of mine. She was at the house Sunday when they had come home, and she can testify that there was no rip in the hot tub cover Sunday when we were done, and we were not the last people in the hot tub cover. I had come home Tuesday night with a friend of mine, and Susan and Mark's daughter-in-law and her husband, Susan's son Peter, were in the hot tub, and we believe
You mean
that.
with the sausages and the cigarette butts?
No, that stuff had been taken out and cleaned.
Mr. Scott, the Horners allowed you to live with them, and Mr. Horner has no question asked you not to, no parties. You violated that trust by having a party.
We had actually, I had only had about 5 friends over.
Throughout the entire time that you were there, Mr. Scott?
No, but I never
Mr.
thrown a
Scott,
party
look,
there,
I
no.
want you to watch. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
I've had 20-year-olds, a whole gaggle of them. When 20-year-olds know that there's a free house, it's never just 5 people. Mr. Scott, do you understand? So if you want me
Yes,
to
ma'am.
believe other things that you're telling me, and I'm sure you do, I'm going to ask you again. How many people were at the house
There was only 5 people there.
at one time?
Yes, because I had lived in 2 previous houses before I moved in with Mark and Susan, where I'd paid the mortgage myself, and I had pretty much gotten the partying out of my system. I quit drinking. I don't drink anymore, and it's just we were hanging out, having a good time, trying to unwind on a weekend.
Well, who do you think it was that was a pig in the group of 5 that you had then, who put food in the hot tub and cigarette butts and cans? Which
It was my
one
buddy
of your
Greg.
5 friends?
It was my buddy Greg. He had admitted to it.
He had admitted to it before they found it?
Well, I had told him that they had found parts of a sausage in the hot tub, and there were beer caps and everything, and he said, oh, the sausage was probably from me, because he was the only one eating in the hot tub.
So I assume that if you had seen him eating in the hot tub, Mr. Scott, you would have said to him, we don't do that.
I should have.
Did you see him?
I did, and I didn't say anything to him.
Did you see him smoking in the hot tub?
I did. Everybody was smoking in the hot tub.
And throwing their cigarette butts in the hot tub?
I didn't see anybody throw a cigarette butt in the hot tub. And
Well,
I
did you
didn't,
take out ashtrays for everybody?
There were ashtrays out there.
Did anybody use them? You must have been aware of that unless you had been drinking.
Yes, ma'am, people did use them. The next day, when we were going through the hot tub, we had only found parts of sausages in the filter. I didn't see any cigarette butts in the hot tub at all. And
Well,
I didn't
Mr.
see any
Scott,
beer
let me
caps.
tell you this. When you abuse a privilege, I have to assume that the people who disrespected the Horner's property also ripped their cover.
Okay.
Because otherwise, why would Mr. Horner claim, after being so nice to you, they were nice to you, weren't they?
Well, the whole relationship we had was there was a lot of verbal abuse there. Mark especially was constantly putting me down, calling me, and I'm quoting him here, he was always calling me a dump. Him and his wife were both always calling me a dump. He called me pardon my French, on numerous occasions, and he used to go around bragging to everybody that I was his, because I was helping out around the house and still paying $75 a week. And at the time, I had just gone with all of this because I didn't want to cause any tension because I was living there under their roof.
Do you have children?
I do.
How many children?
I have 3 children.
How old are they?
My oldest is 23, and then I have
Where is the 23-year-old?
My 23-year-old is in the service. He's stationed at Fort Campbell in Kentucky.
And then you have I
have a 20-year-old.
Where is that child?
He lives with his girlfriend.
Well, that doesn't warm my heart. And what else?
And I have a 16-year-old at home.
And I have a 9-year-old.
Who lives with?
Her mother.
Who you visit?
Constantly.
And support?
Yes.
Mr. Scott says that you called him a lot of vile names. Is that true?
I definitely called him a dump.
When did you do that?
He got, I believe it was his 12th or 13th moving violation and lost his driver's license. So we particularly told him that he was a dump for that. He lost...
Just a second.
It was my 8th in 4 years.
Just a second. 8th in 4 years?
Yes, ma'am.
He's right.
Ma'am, that wasn't the only occasion.
Just a
I called you
second.
dumb.
Well, I'm going to get the rest of them. But right now, that would have been worth at least a couple.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
I want to find out if they did, in fact, call you a dump, if they had good reason to do that. 8 moving violations in 4 years fits.
And later today.
If you had to make a choice as to whether Mrs. Ramos or your 9-year-old son was telling you the truth, who would you pick?
I would pick
My son.
Well, then you would pick wrong.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Mark Horner claims former tenant Jacob Scott damaged his truck and ripped his hot tub cover. Jacob is countersuing for the return of his bed and mountain bike.
I could tell that you are presenting yourself as a young man who is totally responsible and thoughtful, and you sound that way.
Thank you.
But I'm looking at these people and I'm saying to myself, this is not a couple that brought you into their home to use as a slave and berate you. So I want to find out if they did, in fact, call you a dumb, if they had good reason to do that. 8 moving violations in 4 years fits.
He also had 2 while he was waiting for his suspension to come over.
And so that was worth at
So
least 2 more.
Yeah, so they took his license away.
Got it?
Yes,
ma'am. All right. Let's sort of cut to the chase here because I don't want to torture you any further.
Thank you.
You have to... You're welcome. Because I don't want to hear anything else about you because you wore a tie to court and speak well, and I'm sure you're going to try to put your life together. This is
my friend Leanne.
Not a girlfriend?
No.
You weren't eating sausages in the hot tub, Leanne. You have to give him back his bed and his bike. He's going to pick it up within 5 days.
Thank you.
I'd like to see the pictures of the truck.
Ma'am?
What?
The one thing I'm concerned about with the bed is there was an incident back when Mark's father died. He was having some trouble with his brother, and he had actually taken pictures of him urinating on his brother's bed. And I'm just worried that they had done something to my bed while it was in their possession.
I'm not going to dignify that question with an answer. Do you want your bed back or not?
Yes, ma'am.
I have pictures of the bed, Your Honor, if you want to see them.
No, I don't have to see pictures of the bed. I'm looking at the front end of this truck. It looks like a little dent, sir. Does it interfere with its driving?
It does not interfere with its driving. There's a tow hook that was smashed off the bottom of it. The grill is cracked. I have an estimate here from the body shop.
Let me see the estimate. Okay. How much is a new hot tub cover, or how do you fix that?
It wasn't, it had to be replaced. Here's the
Okay.
receipt. It was
How much was it?
It was $398 plus tax.
He's responsible for the tax. How much was the tax?
$420.
You living back with your folks, Mr. Scott?
Yes, ma'am.
What are you going to do with yourself?
Actually, in October, I'm going to be moving down to St. Petersburg, Florida.
To do what?
For a change, I'm going to become a construction worker down there. That's what I do up here, but just to get away from New England and a new scenery.
Where it's
really.
warm.
Exactly.
Who do you know in St. Petersburg?
A friend of mine lives down there, so a close friend of mine. I grew up with her, so she's got an apartment down there. She's going to school down there, and
You might want to try that, Mr. Scott. School is not terrible.
I was thinking about it, but I work 7 days a week now. I love to work. Both my jobs, I landscape on the weekends, and I'm a construction worker on the weekdays.
You have your driver's license back?
No, ma'am, I do not. I actually get it back in 21 days.
Try to hold on to it this time, please,
Yes,
Mr.
ma'am.
Scott. Get your bed back and your bike in 5 days. Judgment for the plaintiff on your claim for $1,420. Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
I was like, what kind of pig would do this to somebody who tried to help him?
Can't wait to move away from this area and away from that family.
He drinks a lot and he does a lot of drugs.
I had a few friends over, and I don't do drugs.
I'm glad she saw Jake Scott as the dump he really is.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Ramos versus Trent. Step forward.
Alice Ramos is suing neighbor D'Angelo Trent for damages to her car. Alice says D'Angelo's son, 9-year-old D'Angelo Jr., crashed into her vehicle with his bike.
Mrs. Ramos, it is your complaint that this little boy right over here was on his bicycle, fell off of his bicycle, and scratched your car. You want his father to pay for the scratch on the car. Is that right? And Mr. Trent says?
Not a chance.
When did this happen?
June 19th of 2004.
Were you at home at the time?
Yes, it was a Saturday. We had had a yard sale at my residence, and this child here had been riding his bicycle the better part of the day, up and down.
What's your name?
D'Angelo Trent Jr.
D'Angelo?
Yes.
Did you know him before?
I've seen him
June
in the
19th?
neighborhood, but I didn't know whose child he was.
But you had seen him before?
Oh, yes.
For how long?
He's lived in our neighborhood as long as I can recall.
So you know him. This isn't
Right.
a child who you hadn't seen 100 times before.
Oh, definitely.
Alice Ramos says neighbor 9-year-old D'Angelo Trent Jr. damaged her car when he crashed his bicycle. D'Angelo's father, D'Angelo Sr., claims his son doesn't own a bike.
So what did you see when he fell off the bike?
He bumped into the bumper of my car, and he fell off his bicycle. At that point, I was not concerned about my car. Myself, my nephew Andrew, and my niece all ran out to the street to see if he was okay. He seemed okay, but he fell awfully hard for how quickly he jumped back up.
And subsequently you found a scratch on your car?
When we first checked, we saw what looked like rubber scraping on the bumper of the car. And I told the little boy, before he took off, I told him, that's okay, this can be buffed out, you can go. So he jumped on his bike and he took off, more scared than hurt, I think. And 10 minutes later, he comes back with another young man on the handlebars. And he and his friend got off, and he started to show the friend what he had done. Well, unbeknownst to us, we were more concerned in the beginning about his welfare. We didn't really inspect the car. I saw the rubber scrapes on the bumper. But he's showing him another area of the car which we had not seen. And there is a scrape on the trunk.
You have a picture of it?
No, I don't.
Why don't you have a picture of it?
As I go on to the story, you'll see why.
Okay.
There was a good gash to where the whole paint and primer, everything came off right down to the metal. And it was right at the height about where the handlebars are.
So what did you do next?
I said, did you do this with your bike? And he said, he nodded his head yes. I said, well, then you can't leave. I need to talk to you. He looked at me wide-eyed, scared, started to cry, jumped back on his bike, and took off, and left his little friend there. I asked his friend, do you know who this little boy is? I've seen him in the neighborhood many times, but I don't know who he is. And he says, yes, that's D'Angelo's son. And I said, D'Angelo, I know D'Angelo. I've known D'Angelo, the father, since he was knee-high to a grasshopper, since he grew up in the neighborhood. Mm-hmm. So I said, can you take me to his house? So he walked.
Okay, so let's move on a little bit. Ms. Ramos, did Mr. D'Angelo say that he would take care of the problem?
Absolutely.
And that's why you had it fixed and you didn't take a picture. I'm just running ahead because that sounds like what you're going to tell me.
I didn't take a picture because I had to call the police because we could not locate him, the father.
Why?
Because there was no one at the house. The house was all opened up, windows, doors, everything was opened up at the house. There was nobody there.
Okay, so when the police came, he said he would fix...
He told the police officers he would take care of it between me and him.
Okay, stop. And you had it fixed. How much did it cost you to have it fixed?
$300.
You have a receipt?
Yes, I do.
I'd like to see it, please. You weren't there.
I wasn't there.
He was there.
He was there.
How long have you known Mrs. Ramos?
22 years.
She a nice lady?
Nice lady.
Seems like a lovely lady.
Yeah.
Seems like a caring lady. Is concerned about your son?
Right.
More concerned about your son than her car?
Right.
Why'd you pay her the $300?
Because my son doesn't own a bike. He was on the pegs of that
He
bike.
was riding a bike that day. Now, Mr. Trent, you seem like an intelligent man, sir.
I am.
If you had to make a choice as to whether Mrs. Ramos or your 9-year-old son was telling you the truth, who would you pick? Who would you pick, sir? I haven't even spoken to him. I know who I would pick.
I know the child that was riding the bike, and I know he's nowhere in court.
Listen
so I
to
don't
me,
know why my
sir.
son's here.
You weren't there. Mrs. Ramos, who you've known for 22 years,
Right.
says that your son was the one who was riding the bike. You weren't home. So I'm going to go back to my original question. If you had to make a choice as to whether your 9-year-old son, D'Angelo, was telling the truth or Mrs. Ramos was telling the truth, who would you pick?
I would pick my son, of course.
Well, then you would pick wrong. Your son, and you weren't there, was riding the bike. Look at me, D'Angelo. Isn't that right?
No.
Baloney.
Judge, when you ask her if there were two people there was a person riding and he was on the pegs.
No.
Please ask her.
She said he was riding the bike. Is that what you told me?
That's right.
Was there 2 children there?
No. When the incident happened, there was only one child on the bike.
When he
D'Angelo
came
Jr.
back, she said there were 2 people. He was riding, and there was another child on the handlebars. And then when she went out there and confronted them, he got scared, and left the other kid there. And if he's not telling you that story,
The other child
I
told me
take
the
him out to
story.
the barn. Judgment to the plaintiff in the amount of $300. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step.
Simpson versus Scaife. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated. Folks, have a seat.
Miss Simpson, you were taking a family vacation to Jamaica.
That's correct.
And at the time of this vacation, this lovely young man was your daughter's boyfriend.
That's correct.
It is your claim that you agreed to advance him the money to go on this vacation with the agreement that he would, when the vacation was over, pay you back.
That's correct.
You did take him on the vacation, paid for him. He and your daughter have now parted company, and he has never paid you back.
That's correct.
And Mr. Scaife says that he had a wonderful time on vacation,
Right.
but he was your guest, right?
Right.
Who was this?
This is my roommate at the time. We were invited. Her daughter lived with us. He was a witness.
Did you go on the vacation too?
No, ma'am.
Just he went.
Just me.
You didn't want to go to Jamaica?
I wanted to, but she wouldn't pay for me.
Oh, step up. Tell me your name.
Justin Runyon,
How old are you, Justin?
23.
And you were living with Kyle and...
Natalie.
Natalie.
She lived with us, actually.
So tell me, Justin, when was this trip?
I think it was like May of last year.
And Natalie told you about the trip?
Yes, ma'am. She came over to our house and was all excited and said that...
Look at me.
him-
No, look at me.
She told Kyle that he could go with them for free.
She did?
Yes, ma'am.
She said, oh, you can come with us and you can come for free.
Yes, ma'am.
And didn't you say, can't I go for free too?
I joked around about it, but,
Well, tell me how you joked around about it.
well, Natalie...
Come on, tell me what you said. You remember exactly that she said, please, I want you to come to Jamaica. You can go for free. So if you remember that so clearly, I want you to tell me what it is that she said to you and what you said to her. Think carefully.
Natalie told Kyle that he could go for free, and Kyle's like, well, are you sure about that? And she's like, even if we break up, you don't ever have to pay my mom back.
Oh. Oh. It's like I'm watching Dumb and Dumber. Huh? Right? Don't you love it?
Let's try to figure out which one is Jim Carrey.
Yeah, I figured, right? Me too. All right, Justin. Thank you very much. You've been most enlightening. You may sit down now.
It's like shooting fish in a barrel. It's incredible.
Wonderful. It's just wonderful. I don't even need a good night's sleep. Okay. Now, Kyle.
Yes, ma'am.
Last year, what were you doing to support yourself?
I was a bartender.
Were you working full-time?
Yes, ma'am.
So, get good tips? Nice-looking guy like you?
Sometimes tips were great. Sometimes we weren't so busy.
Well, you managed to support yourself, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Great. Are you still working as a bartender?
No, ma'am.
What are you doing now?
I paint houses.
Got a girlfriend?
No, ma'am.
What happened with Natalie?
It just didn't work out.
She's a nice girl, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Come on, Natalie.
Thank you. Been wanting to play too.
You want to play too? No, I usually have all the fun. Natalie.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you ever tell Kyle in Justin's presence? Let's see if I can repeat that exactly. I want you to listen to me carefully, Justin, to make sure that I'm going to repeat it pretty much as you told me. That you wanted to take Kyle on a trip to Jamaica for free. He doesn't have to pay for anything. And even if you break up, he doesn't have to pay your mother back. That's what you told me, right?
Yes, ma'am.
No, ma'am, I did not.
Tell me about the trip to Jamaica, Natalie.
We had a great time.
Good.
Originally, my mother and myself and her best friend were scheduled to go on a trip. Kyle and I got a little serious, and he hinted around a lot. He would have liked to go. I didn't really mind that Kyle went. I mean, I was actually looking forward to him being there. I knew he did not have that kind of money, and neither did I, honestly. So when I ran it past Mom, I said, Mom, Kyle's kind of after me. He really kind of wants to go. You know, is there something we can do, whatever? And Mom said, can he borrow the money from his parents? Kyle said, no, that's not an option. Mom said, well, I can give him a loan. And at that time, we were expecting Kyle to get a settlement from an car accident that he had been in. And everything we did revolved around that settlement. Utility bills, cell phones, anything. He kept going back to that.
So he kept hoping to get this settlement check.
Yes, ma'am, he did. And in addition, when you asked him what happened with Natalie, you should ask him about
his financial priorities and where his responsibilities are.
Well, why don't you tell me?
They're nowhere. They're video games, predominantly. Kyle was in between jobs most of the time. After his car accident, I actually paid his bills in he and Justin's home.
What kind of car accident were you in, Kyle?
I was rear-ended at a stoplight.
Were you the driver of the car?
Yes.
So you sued the car that hit you?
Just for medical bills and everything like that.
Kyle, did you sue through an attorney?
Yes, ma'am.
An attorney doesn't sue just for medical bills, Kyle. Attorney sues for pain and suffering, for your injuries, and to reimburse the company that paid your medical bills, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you ever get a settlement?
It's in litigation.
Look at me!
It's in litigation right now.
So you haven't gotten the settlement yet?
No, ma'am.
So what you were doing is really you were counting your chickens before they were hatched?
No, ma'am.
Ah, okay. So what kind of an arrangement, Natalie, did you make with Kyle for the trip?
Originally, I said, my mother will pay for you to go on the trip. However, we need to pay her $50 to $100 a month until you receive that settlement, assuming that it was going to be within the duration of the relationship, which I quickly realized that that wasn't going to be the case.
All right, Kyle.
Yes, ma'am.
How much did you give Miss Simpson towards the trip?
Nothing. As far as I knew, it was a gift.
Listen to me. Just answer my question. How much did you give her?
I haven't given anything.
Well, see, that is confusing to me.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
I have one of him climbing a palm tree.
Oh, let
We
me
jumped on the
see.
banana
Oh,
boat.
I want to see. The insurance company that's handling his lawsuit with his lawyers that's been pending for ages is certainly going to want to see these pictures.
And later today,
She said you advertised for a
New, never been worn chicken suit.
new, never been worn chicken suit. This wasn't something you planned on wearing, I assume.
Michelle Simpson and her daughter, Natalie Ballard, say Natalie's ex-boyfriend, Kyle Scaife, owes for his share of a trip to Jamaica.
Now, what do you do for a living?
I'm an administrative assistant.
You have a household?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
Who lives in your household?
Right now, myself and my youngest daughter.
And are you the sole support of yourself and your youngest daughter?
Yes, ma'am.
How much do you earn a year?
Approximately $38,000.
Okay. Now, how much were you making last year?
Under $20,000 a year.
So you made a little more than half of what the plaintiff made, is that right?
Probably.
Right. And you only had to support...
Myself and her daughter.
You were supporting her daughter?
Well, we were doing it
Just
together.
a second. You were supporting her daughter?
We were doing it together, actually. It wasn't. I wasn't
No,
paying
ma'am.
everything. We were both paying everything together.
So you were supporting...
Myself.
Right. And why would you think that this lady who's running a household, taking care of a minor child, why do you think that she would decide to blow you to a $1,000 vacation?
I was actually shocked. You know, actually, I never asked.
I'm shocked too. I want to tell you something, Kyle. It's shocking to me. Shocking. Because her daughter would have gone without you.
I'm sure she
In a
would.
flash.
Yes, ma'am.
In a flash, she would have gone without you for a week, gotten a nice tan, come back, shown you pictures, and said, I had a great old time.
Yes, ma'am. Probably.
You don't want to be a bum, do you, Kyle?
I wasn't. I never asked.
No,
her
you
that.
don't. Listen to me. You don't want to be a bum, do you?
No, ma'am.
You don't want to take things that should really be better spent on a child
Of course not.
for you to go on a vacation, do you?
Well, I was invited to go on a vacation, and it
I
sounded
don't
like a good idea.
I don't believe that, sir.
Well, that's the way it happened.
I don't believe that, sir. I believe that she advanced the money, and I believe she gave you a lot of latitude to pay it off because, you know, you were expecting some windfall from some bogus accident that hasn't come through yet. And you, like any other 21-year-old, are living in a fantasy world that you're going to turn out to be a millionaire because somebody rear-ended you even though you're not injured. He's going to be sorry he came here. When you went on this trip to Jamaica, did you participate in water sports?
No, ma'am.
Did he participate
Yes,
in water
ma'am.
sports? Sure he did. Sure he did. Did you go swimming?
Yes, ma'am.
What other water sports did
I
he
have one of
participate
him
in?
climbing a palm tree.
Oh,
We
let me
jumped on the
see.
banana boat.
Oh, I want to see. The insurance company that's handling his lawsuit with his lawyers that's been pending for ages is certainly going to want to see these pictures, but I want to take a look at them first. Does this look like a healthy man to you?
Yeah, pretty healthy.
Oh, look at him climbing up the tree. Yes. Look at him climbing up that tree. Picking up his girlfriend. Lovely, lovely, lovely. Oh, well, not only will you probably not get this money from your car accident and the substantial injuries that you alleged in your complaint, but you owe her $916. Judgment for the plaintiff. Step out.
Parties are excused. Let me step out.
I think somebody finally taught him a lesson.
Regardless, win or lose, at least I'm glad this is over with.
I know Kyle better than anyone else, and no one can make him do anything he doesn't want to do but Judge Judy.
I'm just tired of messing with them. I'm sure they're tired of me. I just soon move on.
I did speak with Kyle several times.
Nothing was ever said about it until the relationship was over.
He did say that he would reimburse me the money once he got his settlement.
I'm sure they want the money, especially since the relationship didn't work out.
Oh, I'm thrilled. Justice has prevailed.
Cold-hearted people.
And I think we need to go back to Jamaica real soon.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Alarid versus Ayala. Step forward, please.
Small business owner David Alarid is suing teacher Sandra Ayala for the cost of a chicken suit he sold to her via eBay. Sandra says the suit was supposed to be brand new, but instead it was old and dirty.
Mr. Alarid, you advertised this chicken costume on eBay.
Yes, ma'am.
The defendant purchased it and then somehow paid for it with his PayPal or pen pal, I don't know, something, pal, that I don't quite understand. But the bottom line is she canceled the payment that she made to you and she kept the chicken suit. Okay, so $154 was the amount of the purchase plus shipping, and you want $2,650 for the price of the chicken suit plus your aggravation.
Yes, ma'am.
That's a lot of aggravation, Mr. Alarid. And Miss Ayala says she purchased this as a result of an ad that you placed on eBay, and she said you advertised for a
new, never been worn chicken suit.
New, never been worn chicken suit. She purchased it in good faith, she sent you the money in good faith, and she got this dirty, disgusting, worn chicken suit, which she doesn't want, right?
Correct.
And which she's not going to pay for. Now, when did you purchase it?
This was in May, early May.
And what did you purchase it for? This wasn't something you planned on wearing, I assume.
No. I'm a special education teacher, and just on a volunteer basis, sometimes I throw events for the special ed kids in my area. So I had a couple of picnics and concerts coming up in the early summer, and we have some children's music, and there's a song about a chicken in it, and I thought it would be great to have a little chicken mascot.
David Alarid says eBay customer Sandra Ayala owes for the cost of a chicken suit. Sandra claims David misrepresented the sale.
Do you have a copy of his ad that he ran on eBay?
I think he brought the original ad.
Can I see it, please? Okay, here we go. New, never worn, deluxe adult chicken mascot costume. And is this the way it came?
This is the way it came.
Can I see it, please, Bird?
Sure.
Come on, have a little bit of a sense of humor, babe.
And bring the feet with the shoe prints.
Name is Bird. I take it kind of personal.
We've known each other a long time. Listen, this has been worn, Mr. Alarid.
Yes, ma'am.
So, how come you sold something that had been worn to her as brand new, never worn?
Well, when it was shipped, it was brand new, never worn. It was sold 5 months ago.
Okay, let me see. No, it doesn't look too awful. You bought it in May what?
I think the date was May 8th. It was May 8th.
Excuse me a minute.
Who gets it?
Let's keep it right here for a minute. Well, I haven't finished doing the case yet.
Okay.
May 8th. And when did you receive it?
Just about a week after that.
When did you notify them that you didn't want to pay for it?
Well, that's not... I did pay for it. I paid for it right away. PayPal is a...
So you paid for it right away. Paid for it on May 8th.
Exactly.
Okay. Then you got it about a week later, say May 15th.
Mm-hmm.
And you realized that it
was worn.
It was worn. So what did you do?
I contacted eBay by email. That's the only way. And I contacted PayPal. And I said, what do you do in a situation like this?
Okay. Do you have any emails to support that?
I do have emails. I have emails between he and I, but the
No.
the PayPal...
I want to see...
This is the record of PayPal.
Let me see. Is this the first time you had bought something on eBay?
Yeah, it was my first time bidding on something on eBay, and so since I wasn't sure how to go about it, I had to call PayPal and said, what do you do when you receive a fraudulent item, when something comes worn and dirty and you didn't pay for that? And they said, oh, this man has actually refunded your money. I said, why? And they said, well, we can't be sure why, but you'll be getting the money in a day back to your account. And then he sent the email that said, PayPal accidentally sent you that money. You have to send it back to me. So I contacted PayPal again, and they say, we don't do refunds at all. It's seller initiated, and there are no accidents.
Now, when did you correspond with Mr. Alarid about the suit?
The day that the money came back into my account.
Was that also in May?
Yes.
So practically immediately?
Exactly.
Is all that correct, Mr. Alarid?
No, ma'am.
Okay. When did she contact you and let you know about the condition of the suit?
June the 14th, after I sent several emails, finally, out of desperation, eBay and PayPal advised me to file a complaint with the FBI Internet Fraud Division, at which point I sent an email saying, look, I'm filing a complaint with FBI Internet Fraud Division.
That was on June 14th?
Yes, ma'am.
How many of these chicken suits have you sold, Mr. Alarid?
On eBay or altogether?
Altogether.
Probably about 50. 50? Yes, ma'am.
How many on eBay?
Probably about a dozen.
Where do you get them from?
Out of New York.
How much do you pay for them?
I pay $49.99, I believe it is.
So you pay $50 for them?
Yes, ma'am.
She doesn't like her suit, so you either want the money or the suit back.
Well, it goes a little bit beyond that at this point.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
She wants to give it back to you.
I asked for it back several times.
Yes?
And her emails, which I have right here, I have a copy for you.
Yes, I'd like to see them.
Okay. Here's the emails right here.
Well, she told you right away, sir. She said, I don't know what clerk you checked with about the condition of the suit, but that suit arrived in an old bag, in an old box, and the suit was full of leaves and debris, and the rubber parts were stained with marks on the beak, head, and shoe prints on the feet. They're still there. She told you that right away.
That was June the 14th.
So, she wants to give you the suit back.
I asked for it back.
Now you got it. Listen to me, Mr. Alarid. Are you in business?
Yes, ma'am.
Have you ever had complaints filed with regard to these chicken suits before?
Never.
So you paid for 50 chicken suits, which you paid $50 each for, equals $2,500. That's what you paid for the chicken suits. You sold 49 chicken suits times 124?
Yes, ma'am.
Equals $6,776. That's a fair profit. You made almost $4,000, and you've never had a complaint.
Correct.
Consider this the cost of doing business.
Oh, it's not a problem.
Perfect. Give him his chicken suit.
Okay.
Perfect. Now you have your chicken suit and your profit of almost $4,000. I would walk away a happy man, Mr. Alarid. Thank you very much. This case is over.
Parties up. This is case number 192 on the calendar in the matter of Waters versus Flat.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Judge. Parties have been sworn in, Your Honor. You may be seated. Sir, have a seat, please.
Ms. Waters, do you have a problem that requires you to wear a visor and sunglasses?
Yes, ma'am. I have a letter from the doctor here.
Could I
if you
see it,
need
please?
Yes.
All right, well, this is a letter requesting permission for you to wear the visor and glasses.
Yes.
So I have no objection.
Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Waters, this young lady is your stepdaughter.
Yes.
And her husband.
Yes.
And this gentleman?
Is my husband.
This is your daughter?
Yes, ma'am.
Your complaint alleges that you loaned your stepdaughter and her husband a little over $10,000.
Yes.
And they have repaid half.
A little less than half.
And you want the balance?
Yes.
Your stepdaughter and her husband say they've paid you back all that they have to because they did some work, some barter for you that took care of the balance of the loan. That's your defense. Is that right? How much money did she borrow from you?
Total? Probably about $70,000.
What did you borrow the money for?
For car payments. She paid insurance. There is a payoff balance there from a vehicle that she had taken.
For a car?
Right.
That you needed?
Mm-hmm.
Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, how much money did you borrow from your mother?
Her or my real mother?
Your biological mother?
None.
None? How much money did you borrow from your father?
None.
So it sounds to me, from your mother and your father, you got squat. From your stepmother, you got a whole bunch, right?
Right.
Now, you paid her back $4,000. She says she's loaned you over the years a lot more than $10,000. So now you are going to explain to me why you didn't pay her back the rest. Who's speaking?
Well, first of all, it all started out where we were getting behind.
Why were you getting behind?
On trying to get everything paid.
Why?
Financially.
We were financially in a rut, Your Honor, and...
Why were you in a rut? You're two young people. How many children do you have?
2.
2. Do you work?
Yes.
Do you work?
Yes.
Well, I have slow seasons at my work, and then we weren't making the bills, and Miss Waters took on a couple loans for us. That's how...
Well, that was really nice of her. You have mother and father?
Yes.
Did they give you money to pay off your bills?
No. If they had,
Yeah,
they
brother.
would.
What?
If they had, they would, though.
That's always a good answer. If I had it, I'd give you anything I had. All I wish to have is that I had it. So far, I've got your mother and father who gave you nothing, her mother and father who gave you nothing, and stepmother who gave you a lot. Right? I'm listening to a yes.
They helped us out, yes.
She helped you out.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So now I'm listening as to why you didn't pay her back. I'm listening.
We were renting a house from her. We did a bunch of repairs.
You were renting a house from her.
Yes.
So she had a house. Tell me about the house.
The house, originally when we first got married, she purchased a house for us, and we were buying the house off of her to a bank.
So she purchased a house, and she said to you, if you pay it off, it's yours. If you pay off the note, it's yours.
Yes.
Did she put any money down on the house?
I paid 100% of it. Their closing costs, their furniture, everything. All they had to do was move in.
And they were supposed to pay you back by paying rent every month?
Well, no, it was actually a mortgage set up at that time.
Oh, good.
So that they could get credit.
And how much were they supposed to pay you every month?
At that point, it was $435 a month.
What a bargain. Couldn't get that anywhere else, could you?
No, we got and we were paid on it.
So?
About 2 years went by, we ran into some problems where my mother-in-law wanted to take the house back into her name.
Why was that?
We ran into marital problems.
Yeah.
And instead of losing the house, my mother-in-law wanted to sign the house back over into her name.
Your Honor, before that, before they had marital problems, they were over 3 months behind. I made arrangements with them at that time because I was going to go ahead and go into foreclosure because they were behind on their car payments, which Ford Credit was getting ready to come and repo. They called me. I had to send money to them to stop that. They were over 3 months behind on the mortgage. They talked me into stopping the foreclosure if I would give them a chance, and so I let them make month-and-a-half payments until they caught it up. Then they split up. And that time, my stepdaughter had actually moved in with another gentleman, and we allowed the grandchildren and Mr. Flatt, Brandon here, to move in with my husband and I to help him out because everything was really chaotic at that time.
So far, does that sound right, Brandon? Did you go and live with them?
Yeah, for about a week or 2.
So they were very nice to you?
Grandchildren.
Well, you were there, too, weren't you?
Yes.
You ate there, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
You slept there?
Yes.
Ah, I got it. Why don't you owe her the rest of the money?
Well, we ended up getting back together, moved back into the house, and at this time, my mother-in-law owned the home, and at this time, she decided to rent us just the house.
She decided to what?
Rent us the house instead of mortgage payments.
Okay.
We did a bunch of repairs on the house, and she had an agreement where if I was going to help her do this work, she was going to sell us the house back, and she was going to use that money that I did on the work in the house as a down payment back to that house. That was a verbal agreement we had.
Is that right?
Somewhat.
What kind of an agreement did you have with him?
What happened was in October of 2003, they had come up and told me that they were not going to rent the house any longer when the lease ran out in March, I think it was. I told them at that point then I was going to have to do some renovations to the house and put it on the market to sell it because I needed to get out from under it because of the expenses. Then after some of the improvements that we were doing, we were, adding to actually make it a 3-bedroom home. They decided they liked the landscaping and everything we were doing to it. It looked real nice again, so they told me they wanted to buy it. So we told them at that point in time, if they were going to buy it, they had to get their own mortgage, that we couldn't do it. That was, we had done all we could do.
Right. Get your money. Act like grown-ups. Take care of yourself.
I told them, which basically wasn't legal, but I said, okay, if you help us finish this up so they can come in and do an appraisal on the house to help you get a mortgage, we'll say that you've put X amount of dollars down. So it'll make it easier for you to get this mortgage.
Gotcha. Does that sound right?
Yes, it does, Your Honor.
Okay.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
Hey, why don't you turn around? Just look at him, okay? Now look at me. In 10 years, you won't remember what he looks like. I'm being serious with you. In 10 years, unless you have pictures around the house to look at, you will not remember what he looks like.
And later today...
What word of be quiet didn't you understand? B. You didn't understand B? B. We're going to try it again, because Bill Clinton, you're not.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Lucinda Waters says her stepdaughter Kim Flatt and her husband Brandon owe for loans to pay their bills. Lucinda also says the couple won't let her see the grandchildren.
So I'm still waiting to hear why you didn't pay your stepmother back and your mother-in-law back the money that you owe her.
Well, the last month we lived there, Your Honor, we were half a month behind, and she decided to evict us, so...
Why were you half a month behind?
Bills got caught.
Bills! You know, the two of you were like an accident looking to happen. You're old enough to make children, you're old enough to play house, but you're not old enough to take care of your business. This lady is not going to continue to take care of your business and to clean up after you. You have parents, they don't help you. You have brothers and sisters, who knows, and how many other relatives. Nobody else helps you except this lady here, and you pay her back by not paying her back. You two are an outrage. Do you get my point?
Yes, ma'am.
Huh?
Yes, ma'am.
You ought to thank her by kissing her anywhere she says. Instead of not paying her back what you owe her. Don't say anything else, Miss Waters. I'm not often prone to give advice and to talk about wise, age-old adages, but no good deed goes unpunished. You see, he's probably talking to his mother and father, who gave him nothing. Only, I'd give you anything I had if I had it, but I don't have it. She's probably still talking to her mother. She might even be talking to her father, who gave her nothing. The only one that they're not talking to is the one who was most generous and took care of them, and that's you.
And they won't even let me see the grandchildren.
Well, then they are stupid, insensitive babies, right? Because the only one that helped you is her. And it would seem to me that if you have children and the only grandparent that they can count on is her, then it would seem to me that you are really two of the dumbest people that I've met in a long time if you don't allow her to see her grandchildren.
They told me I would get a restraining order if I even tried to go see them.
Why is that?
Because look, she's trying to come after us for everything we ever had. She didn't always help us. She was always trying to bury us in financial debt every time she got a chance. Oh, I'll go buy you a car, and, you know, I need a car, so what can I do? I don't want my kids around somebody like that.
Where do you come from? Where do you come from? What jurisdiction do you come from? What
Florida.
state? Florida. Where in Florida?
Ocala.
They would have the water tested there. You owe her $5,000. And if you're smart and if you're sensitive, listen, see your first husband?
Yes.
Are you as dumb as he is?
No.
So you understand that he sounds very stupid. He does sound very stupid. You have children?
Yes, ma'am.
Is he the father of your children?
Yes, ma'am.
And you were separated once?
Twice.
Twice. I want you to turn around, just look at him, okay? Now look at me. In 10 years, you won't remember what he looks like. I'm being serious with you. In 10 years, unless you have pictures around the house to look at, you will not remember what he looks like. Now I want you to look at her. You're going to always know what she looks like. She's going to be the staple in your life, not him. Now, quite frankly, you're irrelevant, but your children aren't irrelevant. You're going to have to rely on them. If you cut them off, you're as dumb as he is. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you think that I'm right?
Yes, ma'am.
Right. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $5,000. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
They think that they just can get it and they don't have to pay it back.
I really don't believe that I owed her the money.
I was told to get out of their home, which was my home at the time.
Blown out of proportion.
I just want us all to be a family again.
In the future, yeah, I do see it.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Feynman versus Hernandez. Step forward.
Aspiring author Annie Feynman is suing her former astrologer, Anita Hernandez, for breach of confidentiality. Annie says Anita used her pen name without permission.
Miss Feynman, your lawsuit alleges that somehow Miss Hernandez published something with your name on it. It wasn't your name, it was a pen name that you used, and that people might recognize the pen name and attribute whatever problem it was to you. So I want you to explain to me and to Bird here, what did she publish, when did she publish it, why it caused embarrassment to you, and why you think that she breached some sort of confidentiality arrangement she had with you. Let's go.
Okay. I've been in a depression for a while, so I decided to consult an astrologer. And I gave her some personal details of what had been happening.
You're an astrologer?
Yes.
How did you find her?
I had been seeing her website for quite a while, and she's very...
On the internet?
Yes. She's a very interesting astrologer, and I thought this would be an interesting way to maybe solve some of the problems I'm having. So the email name I use, the Flame McBain email name...
The what?
Flame McBain, which happens to be the main character of a novel I wrote, which I'm sending out to get published. It isn't published yet. That's why I'm nervous about this information being sent all over the internet, because I'm afraid a scandal might come of it, because the information she put out in a newsletter...
Just a second. You're getting ahead of yourself. Oh. So you wanted her to do what?
I wanted a chart.
You wanted a chart?
Yeah, some astrological calculations as to what was happening. Very personal, embarrassing details.
Miss Feynman, you sent this over the internet?
Yeah. Yeah.
Go ahead. So, along with personal details that you wouldn't want the stranger to know about.
I thought it was just going to Miss Hernandez. Well, you have a point.
What I want to see now is how you published her problem, because what she's complaining about is that you published her problem and people could identify her.
It's a limerick.
It's a limerick. I remember limericks from high school.
Ogden Nash.
Don't let them see that.
Is this what you're complaining? I want you to take a look at that. Is this what you're complaining about?
Yeah, this is exactly what... She had sent out the newsletter. I didn't get it, coincidentally enough, but my friend did. My witness got it. That's how I found out about it.
Okay. Can I see it, please? Suffice it to say, without going into details, which would be even more embarrassing for you, because instead of a few people getting it on the internet, hopefully, since our courtroom is televised, hopefully tens of millions of people will be watching.
And won't know the details.
And won't know the details. So you were asking about a situation that you had that involved something personal.
Right.
And she responded by writing a little poem and identified you by the use of the name that you sent her, which was Flame McBain.
I've used this name for 8 years. People know that it's me. Had she just said my client, it wouldn't have been a problem.
It wouldn't have been a limerick.
Just a second. Just a second. Why did you use that name when you sent her?
I didn't. She used it from my email address.
Right. And she says clearly, no real names used.
Right, but I've used that name for 8 years. People know it's me.
So what? She didn't use any real names, and the only way she could convey to you things were by using your name.
Beyond what's happening now, I'm very nervous that if I do get published, that this would come out to be used against me in the future and cause me public embarrassment. I wanted to, get it over with now.
Her novel is about a hooker. Her novel is about a hooker.
Miss Hernandez, Miss Hernandez, put it away. Put it away. Miss Feynman, listen to me very carefully. Shh.
Third generation.
Shh. What word of be quiet didn't you understand?
B.
You didn't understand B?
B.
We're going to try it again, because Bill Clinton, you're not. If you're afraid that the name Flame McBain will come back and haunt you if your novel is published, is that what your real concern is? Change the name.
Change what name?
Flame McBain.
It's too late. It's copyrighted, and the book is...
Just a second. Nobody bought it yet. If somebody...
I have sold it unpublished.
Listen to me. If somebody buys it, change the name. Miss Feynman.
I can't do that.
Get it. Why can't you?
That's my character's name.
Change it if you're afraid of being embarrassed. Change the name.
Way too late for that. Oh, my God.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Listen, if you don't want something to be out there in the general, wherever they put the
I mean, it's
things,
already
they go, listen to me
copyrighted.
carefully, wherever they go in the internet, wherever things go in the internet, you know, into outer space, don't put it in writing. Nothing is private that's on the internet. And if you didn't learn that before, this is a very good lesson. And if you're not afraid of it being out there, but what your real fear is that it may negatively impact on your book, change the name of your heroine. Goodbye.
Party 95 on the calendar in the matter of Schmitz versus Mather.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Judge. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated.
Well, folks, I must tell you that I have been involved in the sale of property over the course of my lifetime, and this is one of the dumbest contracts that I have ever seen. And why three seemingly intelligent people would enter into such a ridiculous agreement is beyond me. And why the attorneys who represented you in the sale of this cabin would allow you to enter into this agreement. Maybe it's because you're young, but you're not that young. So this is what it's about, Bert. Listen, careful attention.
Got it.
Miss Schmitz had a cabin that she was very fond of. It was a vacation cabin. However, as fond as she was of the cabin, she decided to sell it. And she sold it to Mr. and Mrs. Mather, a lovely young couple who wanted a vacation place. Where is this cabin located?
Sasheen Lake, Washington.
Beautiful, on a lake. However, Miss Schmitz wasn't prepared to totally let go of this cabin, so she maintained, through a letter of intent with the Mathers, an agreement that twice a year she was going to be able to use the cabin for a week each. Once Memorial Day, where she had a big party every year, and once during the summer. These folks agreed to that condition. Now, the first week she used the cabin, according to her, everything was okay.
Yes.
But when she was planning the second weekend, Mr. and Mrs. Mather were having second thoughts already about this agreement. So they sort of, according to her, made it unpleasant. They didn't give her the key to the cabin. They said, we're not giving you a key. We'll unlock it, and when you leave, you lock it. Which sort of, to her, made her a prisoner in the cabin because she couldn't leave for the whole week. She was afraid the cabin would be unlocked and unattended to. And then she found her stuff piled up because she sold the cabin furnished. Anyway, because of what she considered a breach of their contract, she hired an attorney to sort of get involved. So she is suing them now because she wants the attorney's fees that she expended to sort of make sure this weekend took place. And then when she went there, you flew there, is that right?
Yes, it's over 300 miles from where I live.
So did you fly, is my question.
Yes.
To make a long story short, she didn't stay. So she wants them to pay for her airfare and for some stuff of hers that she says was missing from the cabin. I don't know what could be missing since she sold it. So, I don't understand that. Mr. and Mrs. Mather say, well, they really weren't thrilled with her coming for the second weekend because they had heard via neighbors about the previous weekend, but they never told her that she couldn't come, and that when she was there previously, she broke some things, she took some things, and also for lawyers' fees because they had to get their lawyer involved to talk to her lawyer about this alleged breach of contract for the second week vacation. Did I sort of outline it pretty well?
Pretty good.
Yes, perfect.
Whose idea was this sale with tentacles?
Laura's.
Your Honor, it was my idea because I was giving up thousands of dollars in a prepayment penalty so that they could get their own financing.
You bought the cabin when?
In '94.
And you bought
a
it?
20-year contract.
Which said?
$1,000 for every year and partial year that you end the contract, and it was an assumable contract.
Just a second. You're talking about a mortgage?
Correct, a contract.
Oh, just a second. It's not a contract. You're talking about you had a mortgage. That was an assumable mortgage.
With a prepayment penalty.
Oh, now I understand. We're talking apples
glad
and
you
oranges.
understand.
All right. She had an assumable mortgage, but if they wanted to pay off the mortgage, if she wanted to pay off the mortgage early, there was a penalty. If she got somebody to assume her mortgage on the cabin, then there wasn't a penalty. And you did or did not assume the mortgage?
We didn't assume the mortgage.
You didn't assume the mortgage, so that it cost you $10,000 extra, in your way of thinking, to sell it to these people.
Yes, Your Honor.
Well, let me tell you this, Ms. Schmitz, that's a skewed way of thinking, because all you have to do is find another prospective buyer who'd pay you an additional $10,000. But what you don't do is say, well, I'm going to sell it to you, but I want to be able to use it twice a year for free. Forever. Because that's dumb.
Thank you.
Right?
Yes. It's very...
It's not the last cabin in the world.
No.
So, how long have you been married?
8 years.
8 years, yeah.
How difficult is marriage?
It's hard.
What?
It's a lot of work.
And you love him?
Yes.
Right? You don't love her?
No.
You just signed on to be married to her
I know.
forever.
That's right.
And our family
Yeah.
warned us and warned us. I know.
Family.
My mom. I know. She knew.
You don't love her. She's a stranger. You don't know if she's a nut. You don't know what her friends are like. You don't know if she's a slob. You don't know, whatever. And you have married her for as long as you have that cabin. And I don't even know if this provision of 2 weeks goes with the sale of the cabin, does it?
No, it was a side.
So, now, I'm really going to try to help you. What's it going to take, Miss Schmitz, to let them out of this stupid deal?
Well, she told me on this.
What is it going to take, Miss Schmitz, to let them out of this stupid deal?
I would like to be paid for the money that I lost.
$4,000.
No, a lot more than $4,000. And today is not about the prepayment penalty.
Just a second. Who do you live with?
Myself.
You have to find something else to do with the next 5 years of your life other than sue these people. Because the contract that you entered into was dumb. The prepayment penalty for your mortgage had absolutely nothing to do with selling them this property with this 2-week provision. It's dumb, and you should finish it today. And you should allow me to help you. I'm prepared to help you. If you don't want me to help you, I don't think you're going to like the judgment today. Do we understand each other?
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
If I offered them the use of my home, does that also negate that offer?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
We don't want to use her home.
It's over.
And later today,
I just kind of figured the whole thing was a wash. It was easier just to get out of each other's lives and move on.
You expect me to accept that, sir? And you think that I am not going to humiliate you in front of 10 million people?
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Laura Schmidt says Cody and Brandy Mather owe for breach of contract regarding the sale of a weekend cabin.
You have to find another purpose for living other than this cabin. You have to let it go. Now, if it's going to cost $4,000 to let them out of this ridiculousness, it will give you the opportunity to spend the next 4 years someplace else, $1,000 a week, celebrating your birthday, Memorial Day, or whatever else you want to celebrate. But you have to let them out of this ridiculous bargain, because otherwise what they're going to do is, as much as they love the cabin, they're going to sell it to somebody, maybe even a relative, to get out from under this ridiculous commitment that they made. So it's my job to try to reduce the amount of litigious behavior we have in this country, not expand it. So I am prepared to help you, Ms. Schmitz. Do you want me to help you?
Yes.
Now I'm going to ask you again. How much is it going to cost to let them out of this ridiculous contract?
Your Honor, I'm out $4,000 in addition to the thousands I paid in the prepayment penalty.
They're not responsible for your prepayment penalty. That's your bag. You could have said to the realtor, one of the conditions of a purchaser is someone who is going to assume my mortgage so it won't cost me an additional $10,000. How much did you pay for the property, Ms. Schmitz?
$62,094.
How much did you sell it for?
$131.
So that's not bad, and you had the use and enjoyment of it, and you doubled your money. And even if you say, well, you had a prepayment penalty on your mortgage, take off $10,000, $121. So you doubled your money in 10 years. That's pretty good, right? So I'm going to ask you again, what is it going to cost to let these people out of this ridiculous contract that you both entered into.
Your Honor, I wasn't prepared to talk about the prepayment penalty.
I just talked about the prepayment penalty. Did I make sense to you?
Yes.
You think it's going to make more sense to retain a lawyer, sue them, continue to sue them, because the lawyer's going to charge you money. I would charge you money at the rate of $500 an hour. So, and a lot more aggravation. So all I'm telling you is you have to find a life other than suing these people. It's over. And I am prepared to help you. I would take me up on my offer.
I will.
Good. So let's go again. How much is it going to cost to let them out of this ridiculous contract? Then I'm going to ask them if they're prepared for it.
Since the maximum I'm allowed to ask for of the $15,000 is $4,000, I guess that's the maximum I can receive.
Well, I'm going to let you amend your complaint to ask for $5 because that's the jurisdictional limit of this court.
Thank you.
Now I'm going to come to you. Ms. Schmitz is prepared to have me enter an order that says, upon the payment of $5,000, that she will declare null and void the requirement that she use the house for 2 weeks a year, and then you will both withdraw these claims. What do you think?
I agree.
That sounds good.
Sounds great.
Very smart.
Now we are.
Okay. You have a copy of the letter of intent that forms the basis of your lawsuit? You prepared to withdraw at this point your counterclaim?
We do.
It's going to be a very simple order that I will sign, you will sign. So I'm going to ask you to wait outside. Bird will call you. Yes.
Your Honor, in good faith, I offered them the use of my home. Does that also negate that offer?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
We don't want to use her home.
Absolutely. You don't want to use your home. You don't use their home. Go. Goodbye. Have a happy life. Good luck.
Thank you.
Judge Hughes, you may step out.
She stole things from our cabin. She possibly messed with our water. Our kids got sick.
I just felt very anxious that they weren't being truthful with me.
She's had these wild, crazy parties, 40 to 60 people. I mean, it just drunken mess with cops called out.
It absolutely fell apart this spring when they refused to let me have it as they agreed upon at closing.
We fell in love with this cabin, and we knew it would be perfect for our family, and we made a really stupid decision.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Doyle versus Peterson. Step forward.
Carolyn Doyle is suing her ex-boyfriend, Matthew Peterson, for a loan to fix his teeth. Matthew says he helped Carolyn fix her house.
Miss Doyle, you used to live with this gentleman. How long did you live with him?
Matthew and I started dating July 4th of 1999, and he lived with myself and my children off and on for a total of about 2 years. 1 year, then moved out, then moved back in for a year, then moved back out.
And during that time, which we'll pinpoint better later, you claim that without your authorization, he forged your name as a co-signer to a loan for some dental work that he wanted.
I don't know if he ever signed my name. He did open an account and took out a dental loan using my Social Security number, and it shows up on my credit record as
okay, but you never signed it.
No, I did not.
Well, so somebody signed your name to it.
I never saw the document, Your Honor. Okay.
I assume he has the document somewhere in his pocket. In any event, he didn't pay the loan?
Correct.
And it's negatively impacted on your credit?
Correct.
You no longer are together, and you want him to pay the bill?
Correct.
Smile pretty, Mr. Peterson. What was wrong with your teeth?
2 porcelain crowns on my front teeth, and both of them were fractured. And
So it was cosmetic work?
more or less. Without them, though, I just have 2 posts there,
Not attractive, but clearly you can live that way.
I suppose.
Now, when did you want to replace these 2 porcelain crowns?
I was living with it cracked for probably about a year or so, and then in the process of chewing gum, it completely broke off one afternoon, and I was left with just the post that goes under the crown, my real tooth, and it was somewhat of an emergency at that point. You know, the following morning, the dentist squeezed me in, and
Now, were you and Miss Doyle living together at the time?
no.
Were you still seeing each other?
Yes.
Exclusively?
Yes.
Any reason why you weren't living together?
We lived together when I owned my condo, and I wanted to flip that into a single-family home because I have 3 kids, and I wanted him to have a nice home with a backyard in a neighborhood, and he didn't agree with my decision to sell the condo. I was buying it on my own. He wasn't buying it with me, but he disagreed with my decision to sell the condo and buy the house. So when I sold...
just my own curiosity, why?
I think he thought things were fine the way they were, and so why move?
Okay, so that's when he moved out, but you still continued to see each other.
Correct.
So now the dentist squeezes you in August.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm listening.
Okay, I went to the dentist's office in the morning upon looking at the other front tooth that was fractured as well, so they said we have to take care of both of them. I couldn't cover it on such short notice, so they said, well, you can go ahead and apply for this in-house credit we have here, which I did, was denied. They said, do you have a cosigner? At that point, I called Carolyn from the office, and she said, yeah, here's my number, here's the Social Security number, and I'll be back. I'll have to go down there and actually sign the document at a later date, which I don't know if that ever happened or not. And they proceeded with the work, and that was it.
Why didn't you pay the bill?
I was making monthly payments.
Now you're looking at your shoes.
I made the first couple payments, and then I came late on one. She said, I can't have this affecting my credit with you making late payments. And then she said, let me just pay off the whole loan and you can just pay me. And then when we ultimately ended up breaking up, walked out, and that was the end of that. And I had done considerable amounts of work on her house, remodeling, fixing it up,
Which
paintings.
I paid him for.
Just a second. Please don't interrupt.
I'm sorry.
And I just kind of figured the whole thing was a wash. It was easier just to get out of each other's lives and move on.
So you mean you stuck Miss Doyle, who is a single parent, raising 3 children, with bills for your cosmetic dentistry? I mean, you expect me to accept that, sir? And you think that I am not going to humiliate you in front of 10 million people? Go ahead.
Upon our last conversation when I left, I was served with papers days later, so there was never any opportunity to discuss any kind of payment plan. She never asked me for the money.
Why should she have to ask you for anything? How old are you?
32.
You work?
Yes, ma'am.
You have children?
No.
So whatever work you do, you just manage to take care of yourself,
Correct.
right? Now, what about Miss Doyle? Does she work?
Yes, she does.
And she takes care of 3 children?
Yes, she does.
And she runs a house? Let me ask you a question. When you were living in the house, did she have household help?
No, myself.
Did she have, yeah, I know how helpful you are. Did she have household help?
No,
Who did the laundry?
she did.
Who cleaned the bathrooms?
She did.
Who had a full-time job?
She did.
Who had 3 children?
She does.
Who had 2 cracked porcelain crowns?
That's me.
Are you embarrassed?
When you lay it out like that, yes, I am. But
Well, if your mother didn't lay it out feel like that, I'm going to lay it out feel like that. How much was your dental work?
all said and done, approximately $2,700.
How much of that did you pay?
About $300.
What kind of car do you drive?
Ford truck.
What year?
2000.
Were you making payments on it in 2004?
Yes.
Were you paying rent in 2004?
Yes.
You get where I'm going?
Yes, I do.
Peterson. Anything else you want to say?
I'd like to add just the extent of the work I did around her house. It was a verbal agreement.
Let me ask you a question, Mr. Peterson. I just asked you a few questions. When you were living together, did you take a shower?
Yes.
Who cleaned the bathroom?
She did.
When you were living together, did you change your underwear at least every other day?
Yes, ma'am.
Who did the laundry?
She did.
You get
not
my,
exclusively.
You get my drift?
I get your drift.
I won't even go into other more intimate details, sir, but I can almost guarantee you this. Believe me, you got the better end of the bargain. She knows what I mean. So do most of the other women. You owe her $2,400. Pay it. Thank you. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may Hamlin.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, Judge. Parties have been sworn in, Your Honor. You may be seated. Folks, have a seat, please.
How old are you, Mr. Enum?
18.
And you?
21.
You have 2 children?
Yes, ma'am.
How old are they?
1 and 3. I mean 4.
And Mr. Enum is not the father of either of those children?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Mr. Enum.
Yes, ma'am.
According to the complaint that you filed in this case, you met the defendant and subsequently decided to lease a house with her. Both of you signed your names to the lease. She moved in, subsequently moved out with her 2 children. You want her responsible for her half of the rent for the duration of the lease.
Correct.
Ms. Hamlin says that you are a violent, vicious person, that you abused her and her children.
There's a lie, Your Honor.
Shh, just a minute. And she is counterclaiming. That's what the case is about. All right. When did you sign this lease?
January 18, 2005.
And when did she move out?
May 28th, 2005.
Tell me the circumstances surrounding her moving out.
She moved out in April.
Why did she move out? You don't know. Why did you move out?
I moved out because he was abusive to me and my children. He would hit my daughter, spank her when she would cry, give her bruises. He would hit my son when he would do something wrong. He just really abused me, and that's why I moved out. So
I didn't ask you for any
Yes,
information,
ma'am.
sir. Are you still living in the house?
Correct. Yes, ma'am.
Do you plan on staying in the house?
Yes, ma'am.
You have a new roommate?
No, ma'am.
Plan on getting one?
No, ma'am.
Why not?
I don't want to go through the same thing again.
So you can afford the rent yourself?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Do you get any child support for your children?
I do, Your Honor, but I do not receive it.
You mean there's an order for child support?
Yes, but I do not receive it.
Why not?
The dad's not working, and he's just not responsible.
Do you get any other assistance for your children?
Nope. Just me working, that's it.
Did the children visit your family?
Yes, they do.
You know her family, I assume. Are you related to her?
Yes, ma'am, I am.
How are you related to her?
I reside with Michelle's mother. We've been together for 7 years, and I can testify of an harassment at Michelle's place of employment on one occasion.
What's your name?
My name is Jeffrey Bell, Your Honor.
Mr. Bell, do you remember the date of the alleged harassment?
It was shortly after Eric damaged...
Give me a month.
May 2005. Sorry about that.
And tell me what you observed in May of 2005.
I witnessed Eric and 2 young ladies at Michelle's restaurant. After they had their meal, I watched Eric have his arm around this young lady. I considered it taunting Michelle at work. After they were close to the door, the 2 young ladies started arguing with the hostess and manager, stating that poor service, they want the manager's telephone number. I got up from my seat. I approached Eric right at the door.
Now, Mr. Bell, don't talk to him.
Yes, ma'am. And I did walk up to him and told Eric that I'm sure that you have some things to work out with Michelle, but please be cool. I shook his hand like a gentleman, and the next thing we know, the car's being vandalized, and if I knew that those children were abused...
Just a second, Mr. Bell.
Yes, ma'am.
If you knew that the children were abused, what would you do?
I would have wrung his neck.
What about her?
I would have taken care of her, too.
What about her, Mr. Bell? She's the mother. I read...
I love her, Your Honor.
Just a second.
Yes,
you
ma'am.
may love her.
Yes, I do.
But I read her complaint, and I'm not so interested in this half rent that Mr. Enman wants her to pay.
Yes, ma'am.
Because right now he's living in the house, and if he wants to get a roommate, he can do it. He told me a moment ago he has no interest in doing that because he can afford the rent.
Yes, Your Honor.
So he's going to stay there. So I'm not so interested in his complaint. I'm interested in her answer and her counterclaim. So I think that if you're going to be mad at somebody, if you believe any of this was going on...
Yes.
And I'm not so sure.
Okay. May I explain just one more
No,
point,
don't
please?
explain anything yet, because I'm going to get to some dates.
Yes, ma'am.
Your girlfriend's daughter, that's who this is, your girlfriend's daughter
Yes, ma'am.
says, in March of 2005, he was fired from his job. Is that true?
No, I quit.
You quit your job?
Correct.
Whatever, fired. When he came home, we started to argue about money. He walked away from me and got into his car. So far, okay? They were arguing. He got into his car to leave.
Yes.
Prior to that, a few weeks after they had moved in together, so in February, they had a fight, according to her. He punched me repeatedly in the head, slapped me in my legs as hard as he could. I attempted to get away and ran outside, but he dragged me back into the house and continued to beat me. This was all in front of the children. This is what she says.
Yes, Your Honor.
All in front of the children. I pleaded with him to stop, and he finally left. A few weeks later, in March, evidently they're still together. All the while, he's abusing her children and abusing her, beating her, none of which you saw any evidence of, by the way. Is that right?
That's correct, Your Honor.
Okay. Then in March, he was, according to her, fired from his job. He came home, they started to fight. He walked away to get into his car. So he walked away. Now, this is somebody that has beat her, dragged her into the house, punched her. So instead of saying, oh, he's leaving, I can get my stuff and my children and get out of here, right? Let's see what she does. You want to know what she says she does?
Yes, ma'am, please.
I followed him to finish talking. I knocked on his window to get his attention. You find that odd, Mr. Bell?
At this point, yes, I do, Your Honor.
Okay. He jumped out of the car and he hit me. I ran into the house and locked myself in our bedroom with my children. When I wouldn't let him in, he kicked down the door and threw me on the bed and continued hitting me. Just a second, now you getting mad at him?
Yes.
I don't believe her.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
I had bought him a shotgun, and I didn't know what he was capable of doing with that gun.
When did you buy him a shotgun?
March.
The first time he hit you and beat you was in February. Why did you buy him a shotgun in March?
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Eric Enham says ex-girlfriend Michelle Hamlin owes for breaking a lease and an unpaid loan. Michelle is countersuing for vandalism to her car and punitive damages.
Now, there's got to be something wrong with somebody who has family at home. You look like a very nice man. You live in the same town?
Oh, yes, ma'am.
So we have somebody who has a mother who's clearly close to her. You have somebody who stands in what we call in French, in loco parentis, like a father to her, because you say you love her. Lives close by, who she can go to. So, according to her, he beats her up. You don't see any evidence of that. I assume you see her regularly.
Yes.
Right? She's still with him.
Yes.
They have another fight, but he leaves. He doesn't hit her. He doesn't touch her. She runs out of the house after him because she's not finished talking. Doesn't sound right to me. Does it sound right to you, sir?
Well, young people act a little differently, but to me, no, Your Honor.
All right. And this is, we're still talking March.
Yes, ma'am.
She didn't leave in March.
No, she did not.
When did you leave?
Like the middle of April.
Your counterclaim says on April 29th, in a fit of rage, he came to my job and saw me talking to one of my coworkers. But according to you, he had your daughter in the car, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, what was he doing with your daughter in the car?
He was taking care of her while I was at work.
Right. And he took care of both of your children while you were at work.
He picked them up from the daycare. He chose to pick them up from daycare.
How often did he pick them up from daycare?
Mostly every day.
So after, according to you, he's been abusing your children since February, March, April. You allow him, unsupervised, to go and pick up your children? You understand me, Mr. Bell?
Yeah, I see your point, Your Honor.
Something doesn't ring true, Mr. Bell.
Up to this point, yes, Your Honor.
Well, that's the testimony so far. I'm practically finished with the complaint and the answer. I mean, I don't have voluminous papers here. I have somebody who says that he abuses her children, that he spanks her infant, spank her so hard it would leave bruises, and yet she allows him to be with her children unsupervised. If I believe it's true, she's as guilty as he is. Because she's the mother. They're her children.
Yes.
Her job is to protect those children. Do you understand me?
Yes, ma'am.
You chose, as a baby, to have 2 children with somebody who was totally irresponsible, who doesn't take care of his children, and then according to you, and I'm questioning the truthfulness of what you say, you hook up with somebody who beats your children, and you stay with them.
He beat your children, you tell her. He beat your children.
Go ahead.
He beat my children, and I was scared to leave in the first place because I had bought him a shotgun, and I didn't know what he was capable of doing with that gun.
When did you buy him a shotgun?
Like in March.
Just a second. You told me that the first time he hit you and beat you was in February. Why did you buy him a shotgun in March? I'll get to you in a second. Why would you buy him a shotgun in March?
Because he wanted it to have protection from the kid's father.
Mr. Bell, don't buy everything that she's telling you, sir.
May I speak just for a couple words, please?
Absolutely, sir.
Okay. I know that there's been numerous complaints against Michelle's children's first father with Eric and Michelle when they first got together. Numerous harassments over telephone, verbal assaults.
You mean by the father of these 2 children?
Yes, and they were
Go
both in fear from the beginning.
Just a minute. Did she confide that in you, sir?
Oh, yes.
That the father of her 2 children was harassing?
Yes.
Threatening?
Yes.
Did she ever tell you that he was?
No.
Right. Now I'll hear you. Because I know if I don't get you up here, we may have an accident. Okay. Who are you?
I'm Anna, and one of his witnesses.
Anna, you have a last name.
Arredondo.
Arredondo?
Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead.
On May 22nd of 2005, Michelle had came over to discuss some things with Eric, and
how do you know these 2 people?
I know these. I have met Michelle prior because they came over to my home, and I met her kids.
Just a second. So you're his friend?
Yes, I'm his friend.
How do you know him?
I've known him for 6 years.
Okay. So now you're going to tell me about something that happened in May.
Yes, in May 22nd, 2005, Michelle came over to Eric's home, and I was heading towards the kitchen, and I overheard her tell Eric...
Just one second. May 22nd, you went to his house?
Yes, sir.
Did you go with the police?
No, I went with a friend.
What did you go there to discuss?
Discuss about my stuff in the house still?
Discuss your property?
Yes, ma'am.
We're talking about somebody who beats you, beats your children, and you, without police protection, voluntarily went to his house.
Yes.
You got where I'm going, Mr. Bell?
I do, Your Honor.
Good. And what happened, Miss Arredondo? What did you hear?
I heard her, and I quote, if you take me to court, I'm just going to lie and tell the judge that you hit me. And Eric said, go ahead, she's just going to see that you're lying. So that's all I can witness.
That's a lie.
Tell him.
That's a lie, Your Honor.
I don't think so.
Eric Enum claims ex-girlfriend Michelle Hamlin broke their apartment lease and failed to repay his loan.
Okay. All I can do is look at conduct. According to you, you entered into an abusive relationship with someone with whom you had 2 children. Then you went to live with him.
Yes, ma'am.
And according to you, he started to abuse you as soon as you signed the lease in this house together. Seriously abusing you, beating, punching, hitting, kicking, but also did the same thing to your 2 infant children. And you continued to live with him. And when you had another fight, he wanted to leave the house, you followed him outside. And then he beat you again. And then you still continued to live with him and allowed your children to live with him. And not only did you allow your children to live with him, but you allowed him unsupervised care of your children. He was the caretaker of your children while you were working. Now, when for the first time did you report his abusive conduct to you and your children to the police?
I never reported it.
Why not?
Because I was scared if I did report it that he would do something else.
Your Honor, we haven't got to the part where he was driving recklessly with a child in the back of the car, doing donuts in a parking lot at her work.
Did you see that, Mr. Bell?
Myself, no.
So I just asked you if you saw that.
I did not see that.
Okay. Now, Mr. Edmonds says that he had the child in the car and he went to get her because why?
Because she said she was going to a party that night and going to leave me with the kids.
And what did you say to her?
So let her know that you're not. You need to be home with your kids.
And she said?
She said, no, I'm not. I'm taking my kids. I'm going out.
I'm taking my kids and I'm going out.
Correct.
So what did you do?
I went to her work.
And you saw her doing what?
Being all over.
Listen to me. Go ahead.
I saw her being all over 2 other guys in the parking lot.
So you got mad?
Correct.
Were you driving around in a reckless manner in the parking lot
No,
with the child in the car?
No, ma'am.
What did you do?
I told her to get in the car and go home. And when we got to our place of residence, I pulled in the garage and the police came right behind us.
Because she had called the police?
Correct.
Had you called him that day to tell him you were going out?
Yes, ma'am.
And when did you tell him you were going to be home?
Probably
Don't look down there. When did you tell him you were going to be home?
like about 12 or 1.
In the morning?
Yeah.
And who was supposed to watch the children until 12 or 1 o'clock in the morning?
I told him that I was going to go to a friend's house and watch a movie and that I would come and pick up my daughter and take her with me. He told me that...
Just a second. Where was your other child?
My other child was with his dad.
When did the other child go with his father?
In the morning time.
This is the same father who you were afraid of and you bought him a shotgun to protect the 2 of you from?
Yes, ma'am.
You got a lot of work to do, Mr. Bell. Her judgment is impaired. Do you understand? You don't get it. Her judgment is impaired.
She's young, and I watched her mature from a teenager to a very good mother. And she is a very good mother, Your Honor.
Impossible! Impossible if I believe what she wrote in her answer, Mr. Bell. Impossible if I believe her that she allowed her children to be in a circumstance with this man who abused her children. That makes her the worst possible mother. The worst possible mother. To sit there and watch a stranger to the children, she says, beat her baby with bruises, and you're telling me matured into a very good mother? Your judgment is impaired.
I believe sometimes, Your Honor, that love is blind. It may be hard.
Love may be blind, and there are women who stay in abusive relationships. She clearly is one of those people who stayed, at least in her first relationship, which was abusive, although she continues to have the lunatic that she described to me before that required protection by a shotgun. She allowed that person to take her infant child. Impaired judgment. And I don't believe her. I don't believe that she was the victim of the kind of abuse she ascribes to the plaintiff. She filed not one police report. You saw no evidence of abuse on either her or her children. She didn't even file a police report after she moved. As a matter of fact, after she moved out and she was free and clear of this horrendous person who beat her and her children, she went back to his house. Is that the action of somebody who's afraid? Okay. Listen to me, sir. You get not a dime from her. You're living in a house. You're happy living there. What you are required to do in this kind of circumstance is to mitigate your damages, which means you put an ad in the internet, you put an ad in the local paper for a roommate. You chose not to do that. That's wonderful. You can afford it. Live there. I don't believe your allegations with regard to your counterclaim, madam. And I think that you have to. If you made 2 children, you better get smart. Because if on the long shot that anything that you say here was true, you have so far made 2 very poor choices. And you have a responsibility to your 2 children to choose more wisely with regard to mates that you select, or else make up your mind that you're not going to have a mate for a while and you're going to rely on this gentleman and your mother as family to help raise you.